Have you ever wondered what it would be like to touch the edges of reality, to find a key that unlocks a door you never even knew was there? For centuries, across cultures and continents, a select group of seekers believed they had discovered that very key, hidden within an ancient and mysterious art. This wasn't just a science of turning lead into gold, it was a spiritual technology, a map for the soul's most profound evolution, and at the very heart of this transformative journey lies a stage so powerful, so pivotal, that it was considered the great work's ultimate test, the alchemical stage of sublimation. This is the moment where everything changes, where the base materials of our being are subjected to such intense, purifying force that they don't just change form, they transcend it entirely, rising to become something entirely new and radiant. This is the secret bridge between the world of matter and the realm of pure spirit, and understanding it can fundamentally alter the way you see your own potential for growth and awakening. Think of the most challenging period of your life, a time of intense pressure or heat that felt almost unbearable. In that crucible of experience, something was likely being forged within you, a new strength, a deeper wisdom, a clarity you didn't have before. Alchemists understood this process on a cosmic scale. They saw the entire universe, including the human soul, as a living laboratory. The stage of sublimation represents the pinnacle of this inner work. It's the mystical operation where the fixed parts of ourselves, our deepest habits, our most rigid identities, our core wounds are suddenly volatilized, turned into vapor, and then given wings to ascend. It's not about escaping who you are, but about refining your very essence to its highest possible state, transforming the lead of your limitations into the spiritual gold of your truest, most liberated self. This is why the masters spoke of it with such reverence. It is the gateway to genuine and lasting freedom. So, what does this ancient, almost mythical process have to do with you, right here and right now? Everything. The principles of alchemy are not locked away in dusty old books. They are a living wisdom, a blueprint for transformation that is as relevant today as it was 500 years ago. We are all, in our own ways, amateur alchemists, working with the raw materials of our thoughts, our emotions, and our life experiences. And the stage of sublimation offers a powerful lens through which to view our own peaks and valleys, our own breakthroughs and breakdowns. In this journey together, we're going to pull back the veil on this profound operation. We'll uncover its true meaning, explore why it was seen as the ultimate goal of the great work, and most importantly, we'll discover practical ways you can recognize and apply the principles of sublimation to your own spiritual path today. Get ready to see your own consciousness in a completely new light, because what we are about to explore will absolutely reshape your understanding of what is possible. To truly appreciate the breathtaking leap that sublimation represents, we first need to stand at the base of the mountain and look up at the entire path. The alchemists didn't see transformation as a single, sudden event. They mapped it as a meticulous, multi-stage journey known as the Magnum Opus, or the Great Work. This was their ultimate spiritual quest, a sacred process of inner purification and rebirth. It was traditionally visualized through a sequence of color-coded stages, each representing a profound shift in the state of the soul's matter. The journey begins with Negrito, the blackening. Picture this as a descent into the darkest night of the soul. It's a stage of putrefaction and dissolution, where all the false constructs of the ego, the accumulated debris of a lifetime, and the shadow aspects we've ignored are brought to the surface to be confronted. This isn't a pleasant stage, but a necessary one. It's the moment the old self must die for the new to be born. It's the raw, unformed chaos before creation. From that fertile blackness emerges the next stage, albedo, the whitening. If Negrito is the dark night, albedo is the first light of dawn. This is a phase of washing and purification, where the fragmented pieces of the self begin to be cleansed and reunited. The chaos starts to cohere into a new, purer form, often symbolized by the moon or silver. It represents a state of clarity, innocence, and spiritual awakening, where the seeker catches their first true glimpse of their own higher nature. Following this, many traditions describe Citronitas, the yellowing. Think of this as the dawning of the inner sun. the purified white substance is now irradiated with intellectual and spiritual illumination. It's the stage where inner wisdom solidifies, where the insights gained during the white stage are baked into a stable, golden understanding. The soul begins to embody its own inherent light, no longer just reflecting it from an external source. The final, triumphant stage is rubedo, the reddening. This is the culmination, the creation of the legendary philosopher's stone itself. It represents the ultimate union of spirit and matter, a state of complete and embodied enlightenment. The soul is now fully integrated, vibrant, and capable of transmitting its perfected state. It is the spiritual gold, the elixir of life, the point where the seeker becomes a true master of their own existence. So, where does our star, sublimation, fit into this grand color wheel? Sublimation is not merely one of these stages, but rather the dynamic, transformative force that makes the entire progression possible. It is the engine of the great work. It is the specific operation that takes a solid, fixed state of being, like the dense, blackened matter of nigredo or the purified white crystals of albedo, and applies such intense, focused heat that it bypasses the liquid state entirely, transforming it directly into a volatile, ascending vapor. This is the moment of transcendence, the critical leap that allows the soul's substance to escape the gravity of its current condition and rise to a higher octave of existence. It's the process that turns leaden despair into golden insight, that transforms the fixed patterns of a wounded identity into the liberated wisdom of a healed soul, all in service of that ultimate goal, achieving the rubedo, the fully realized and radiant self. Now, let's anchor this beautiful, soaring concept into something concrete by defining exactly what the alchemists meant by sublimation. If you've studied a little chemistry, you might recognize the word. In a laboratory, sublimation is the physical process where a solid, like a block of dry ice, turns directly into a gas without ever becoming a liquid. It skips a step. Spiritual sublimation operates on a very similar principle, but it applies to the very substance of your consciousness. It is the inner technology for taking the solid, fixed parts of your personality, your most stubborn habits, your core fears, the parts of you that feel heavy and stuck, and applying the purifying heat of intense awareness until they don't just melt away. They transform, they vaporize, and they rise. They become something lighter, more refined, and infinitely more powerful. This is the alchemy of the soul, the transmutation of your dense, earthly energies into the most subtle and elevated spiritual vibrations. The ancient masters, knowing they were working with invisible forces, developed a rich and precise symbolic language to describe these operations. One of the most crucial terms they used was volatilization. In the lab, a volatile substance is one that evaporates easily. In the inner laboratory of your being, to volatilize something is to liberate it. Imagine a deeply ingrained pattern of jealousy or resentment. In its normal state, it's a heavy, solid weight in your chest. It's fixed. Through the work of self-observation and contemplative practice, you apply the heat of your own conscious attention to it. You don't feed it, you don't fight it. You simply hold it in the light of your awareness, and in a moment of profound breakthrough, that heavy, solid mass of negative emotion doesn't just dissolve into tears, it volatilizes. It turns into a profound insight about your own insecurities, a wave of compassion for yourself and others, or a sudden, clear understanding of a universal truth. The base matter of a negative emotion has been transformed into the vapor of wisdom. It has been granted wings. This leads us directly to another key term, spiritualization. This is the ultimate purpose of the entire sublimation process. It's not enough for a fixed problem to simply become a volatile insight. That insight must then be integrated and directed upward, toward its highest possible expression. Spiritualization is the conscious act of taking that newly liberated energy and dedicating it to your growth, to your connection with something greater than yourself. Think of it this way: when water evaporates, it rises to form clouds and eventually falls again as life-giving rain. In the same way, the energy freed through volatilization must be spiritualized. It must be consciously offered up. so that it can nourish your entire being and not simply condense back into the same old patterns. This is the soul's deliberate ascent. It is a movement from being identified with the problem to becoming identified with the solution, from being ruled by your lower, reactive nature to being guided by your higher, awakened consciousness. This entire, elegant operation from fixation to volatilization to spiritualization is a direct path toward what the mystics of all traditions have called divine union, the experience of feeling utterly at one with the source of all existence, having used the very stuff of your struggles as the fuel for your ascent. This powerful idea of spiritual ascent didn't just remain in the dusty laboratories of medieval adepts. It found a profound and perhaps unexpected home in the modern science of the mind. The great psychologist Carl Jung, after years of studying ancient alchemical texts, made a stunning observation. He declared that alchemy wasn't really about chemistry at all, but was in fact a grand projected metaphor for the process of individuation, the journey of becoming a whole, integrated human being. In this psychological lens, the alchemist's laboratory is your own psyche. The raw prima materia is your unexamined life and unconscious content, and the crucible is the vessel of your conscious awareness. And sublimation, it becomes one of the most vital psychological operations we can undertake. Jung saw it as the essential process of taking our most primal, often troublesome, energies and redirecting them from their original, instinctual goals toward culturally, creatively, or spiritually valuable aims. It's not about suppressing our dark side or our raw desires, but about transforming their power into something that serves our highest good. So, what does this look like in the messy reality of everyday life? Let's take a potent, almost universal, example, the raw energy of anger. In its base, unfiltered state, anger can be a destructive and chaotic force. It can lash out, damage relationships, and leave a trail of pain. This is the fixed state of anger, dense, heavy, and reactive. The traditional non-alchemical approach might be to try and suppress it, to push it down into the shadow, where it only festers and grows stronger. But the path of sublimation offers a radically different solution. Instead of denying the anger, you first acknowledge its presence with fearless honesty. You bring the heat of your conscious attention to it. You sit with the fiery sensation in your body. You observe the raging thoughts without getting swept away by them. In doing this, you begin to volatilize the anger. The solid mass of rage starts to break down, and its core components are revealed: a deep sense of injustice, a feeling of powerlessness, a wounded boundary. This is the moment of transformation. That volatile energy, now understood, can be spiritualized. It can be channeled into the fierce determination to protect yourself or others. It can fuel a passionate work of art, or it can become the courageous energy needed to set a firm and healthy boundary. The base metal of destructive rage has been transmuted into the spiritual gold of empowered action. This process is intimately connected to what Jung called the integration of the shadow. Your shadow isn't a monster in your closet. It's everything about yourself that you have repressed, denied, or deemed unacceptable. It contains not only negative traits like greed or envy, but also hidden positive potentials like your untapped creativity or your natural authority that you were perhaps shamed for as a child. These disowned parts of ourselves are the quintessential lead of the alchemists. They are heavy. They hold us back, and they often control us from the darkness of the unconscious. The work of psychological sublimation involves bringing these shadow elements into the light of conscious awareness. You don't fight your pride, you observe it. You don't run from your shame, you meet it with compassion. By applying the purifying heat of non-judgmental awareness, you volatilize these fixed complexes. Their energy is liberated from the prison of the shadow and becomes available for your use. The arrogance, when sublimated, can become healthy self-confidence and leadership. The chronic anxiety, when held in the crucible of your awareness, can transform into a heightened intuition and a profound capacity for empathy. This principle extends powerfully to the way we handle our deepest wounds and traumatic experiences. A traumatic memory is often a perfect example of fixed psychological matter. It's a dense, crystalline structure in the psyche that feels unchangeable and eternally painful. It traps a tremendous amount of life energy. The therapeutic process, from an alchemical perspective, is a controlled sublimation of this trauma. Through safe recollection, somatic experiencing, or other healing modalities, the intense heat of compassionate witnessing is applied to that frozen memory. It doesn't dissolve into a puddle of helplessness. Instead, it begins to volatilize. The trapped energy is released, and as it rises, it can be reshaped. The story of victimhood can transform into a narrative of survival and resilience. The agony of the experience can become the wellspring of profound compassion for others who suffer. The person who has done this profound work doesn't just get over their trauma. They literally transmute its substance. They take the leaden weight of their past and, through the great work of inner alchemy, spin it into the gold of wisdom and a unique ability to heal the world around them. This is how our personal struggles, when consciously worked with, stop being merely personal problems and start contributing to the healing and evolution of the collective human consciousness. While the core principles of sublimation reveal a universal pattern of transformation, it's truly fascinating to see how this profound stage was articulated and practiced across the world's great wisdom traditions. Each culture, with its unique spiritual language and symbolic framework, discovered this same fundamental law of spiritual physics. The law that what is heavy can be made light, and what is earthbound can learn to fly. Starting in the West, within the Hermetic alchemical tradition, sublimation was often depicted with incredibly vivid laboratory imagery. The alchemist would carefully place a solid substance in a vessel called the alembic, a sort of sealed container with a long, rising neck. As heat was applied from below, the material would not melt, but would instead ascend as a fine vapor, traveling up that narrow passage to condense in a purified state in the upper chamber. This wasn't just a chemical recipe, it was a precise spiritual metaphor. The alembic represented the sealed vessel of the meditative mind, protected from distraction. The heat was the intense fire of concentrated consciousness, of prayer or inner focus, and the rising vapor was the soul itself, or a specific facet of one's consciousness, being liberated from its earthly attachments and ascending to commune with higher realities. The ultimate goal was the quintessence, a fifth element beyond the usual four, representing a state of pure, transcendent spirit that could then be brought back down to perfect the lower self. Traveling to the east, we find Chinese alchemy, particularly the internal tradition known as Needin, working with strikingly similar principles, but through a completely different anatomical and energetic map. Here, the entire process happens within the human body, which is seen as a landscape of spiritual potentials. The raw materials aren't physical metals, but the fundamental energies of Jing essence, Kai vital energy, and Shen spirit. The process of sublimation is at the heart of the microcosmic orbit, where the life force, often visualized as a warm energy, is guided up the governor channel along the spine to the crown of the head. This is a direct internal parallel to the vapor rising in the Western alembic. The goal is to refine the coarse Jing into vibrant Kai, and then to sublimate that Kai into the luminous, transcendent awareness of Shen. A crucial part of this process involves what is called the fire of the heart, which is the focused intention and mindful awareness that heats the crucible of the lower energy center, causing the purified energy to volatilize and ascend. The purified Shen that collects in the upper energy center, often called the crystal palace, is the direct equivalent of the quintessence, a spirit so refined it bestows wisdom, clarity, and a profound sense of unity with the Tao. In the Hindu tantric traditions, we encounter one of the most powerful and well-known metaphors for sublimation, the awakening of Kundalini energy. Kundalini is often depicted as a coiled serpent, a vast reservoir of primal spiritual power lying dormant at the base of the spine. This is the ultimate fixed substance potential energy in its most concentrated, slumbering form. The entire yogic and tantric path can be seen as a carefully orchestrated process of sublimation, where through specific practices, breath, and concentration, this serpent power is awakened. As it uncoils, It begins its dramatic ascent through the central energy channel, the sushumna, piercing and energizing a series of psychic centers known as chakras along the way. Each chakra represents a different level of consciousness, from survival and emotion at the base to intuition and unity at the crown. The ascent of Kundalini is the ultimate volatilization, where the dense, earthbound energy of the individual soul is progressively refined as it rises, transforming at each stage until it finally erupts through the crown chakra in a sublime union with pure, universal consciousness, or Shiva. This is spiritualization in its most dramatic form, where the individual self is utterly transcended. The Islamic alchemical tradition, particularly within the Sufi mystical branches, also held sublimation in the highest regard, viewing it through a lens of divine love and longing. For these sages, the alembic was the human heart, and the substance to be transformed was the lower self, or the nafs. The nafs, with its base desires and attachments, was the spiritual lead. The fire applied to the heart was the intense, often painful, yearning for God. Through prayer, remembrance of the divine, and the purifying trials of life, this sacred fire would cause the lower self to sublimate. Its coarse elements would be burned away, and its purified essence would rise as a sweet, ascending vapor of love and devotion, seeking reunion with the beloved, which is God. This is why so much Sufi poetry is filled with imagery of wine, intoxication, and the nightingale longing for the rose. These are all metaphors for the soul, volatilized by love, leaving behind its earthly prison to fly home to its divine source. The ultimate state of baka, or subsistence in God, is the Islamic equivalent of rubido, where the seeker has become a clear vessel through which the divine attributes flow. When we step back from these distinct traditions, the Hermetic, the Nedan, the Tantric, and the Sufi, a breathtaking pattern emerges, revealing the universal architecture of spiritual ascent. Every single one of them identifies a dense, latent energy located in the lower part of our being, whether it's the prima materia in the alembic, the jing in the lower danshan, the kundalini at the base of the spine, or the nafs in the lower soul. Each one employs a form of sacred heat to initiate transformation, the controlled fire of the furnace, the heart fire of intention, the tapas of yogic discipline, or the burning love for the divine. And in every case, this applied heat causes a profound inner movement, a volatilization where that base substance undergoes a phase change and ascends a central pathway, the neck of the alembic, the governor channel, the sushumna, or the ascending arc of the heart's devotion. The destination is always the same, the crown, the pinnacle of consciousness, where the purified spirit achieves a unitive state. This is not a coincidence. It is a shared map of human spiritual potential, a universal testimony that within each of us lies the capacity to transform our heaviest burdens into the very wings that carry us home. So let's step inside the alchemist's laboratory and witness this process in its most tangible form. The physical operations were never just about chemistry. They were a sacred drama, a meticulously choreographed ritual where every piece of equipment and every degree of heat corresponded directly to an inner, spiritual event. The centerpiece for the work of sublimation was a remarkable piece of apparatus known as the alembic. Picture a sealed container, often made of glass or ceramic, with a broad base and a long, tapering neck that curved downward, resembling a swan's neck or a still. This vessel was more than just glassware. It was a symbolic representation of the entire human being. The base of the alembic corresponded to the body and the lower aspects of the soul, where our raw, unrefined experiences and emotions resided. The long, rising neck was the pathway of the mind and spirit, the channel through which consciousness could ascend, and the sealed nature of the vessel was absolutely critical. It represented the necessity of creating a contained, focused state of awareness, a mind free from the distractions of the outer world, where the inner work could proceed without any energy leaking out. Inside this sealed alembic, the alchemist would place their prepared substance, the prima materia that had already undergone the initial stages of blackening and whitening. This material was the symbolic fixed self. Then, with immense patience and reverence, they would apply a very specific, controlled heat from below. This was not a roaring, destructive inferno, but a gentle, consistent, and precisely regulated fire. In the spiritual analogy, this fire is the sustained heat of your own spiritual aspiration, your heartfelt longing for truth, your dedicated practice of meditation or prayer, your unwavering intention to grow and understand yourself at a deeper level. It's the focused warmth of conscious attention that you apply to the fixed patterns within your own psyche. As this gentle, persistent heat permeated the substance in the alembic, the alchemists watched for a miraculous phenomenon. The solid material would not melt into a liquid. Instead, it would bypass that state entirely, turning directly into a fine, vaporous fume. This was the moment of physical volatilization. The substance, once dense and earthbound, had become airy and light, and it would begin its journey, spiraling up the long, narrow neck of the vessel. Another crucial vessel used in these operations was the retort, a spherical container with a long, side-angled neck. The process in the retort was similar, but its shape emphasized a different nuance of the journey. The matter would be heated in the round body, and its volatile essence would travel down the elongated neck into a separate receiving flask. This configuration beautifully symbolized the idea that the sublimated spirit, once liberated, must be captured and preserved in a new, purified state, ready for the next stage of the great work. Then there was the profoundly symbolic philosophical egg. This was a sealed, ovoid glass vessel, often used for the longest and most delicate operations. The egg represented the cosmos in miniature and the potential for new life. Sealing a substance inside the philosophical egg and applying a gentle, circulatory heat represented the nurturing, incubative quality of consciousness itself. The developing soul, like an embryo, requires a protected, warm, and self-contained environment to transform and grow towards its highest potential, shielded from the harshness of external influences. The process didn't end with the ascent of the vapor. The alchemist's work required immense precision in the cooling and collection phase. As the purified vapor traveled up the neck of the alembic or retort, it would enter a cooler area, often facilitated by a water bath or simply the ambient air. There it would condense, depositing itself as beautiful, crystalline solids on the inner walls of the vessel, or collecting as a pure liquid in the receiver. These collected crystals were not just a chemical product. They were called the flowers of the substance, a term that speaks volumes about their perceived beauty and spiritual significance. This part of the operation holds a profound lesson for our inner work. The ascent of insight, the volatilization of a difficult emotion into understanding, is only half the process. For it to be complete, that liberated energy must be condensed, that is, integrated back into your conscious awareness in a new, usable form. The wisdom gained from overcoming a challenge must be crystallized into a new, more compassionate way of living. The clarity found in meditation must be gathered and applied to your daily decisions. If the energy isn't captured and integrated, it risks simply dissipating back into the unconscious, leaving you no better off than before. This entire laboratory procedure, from the sealing of the vessel to the gentle application of heat and the careful collection of the sublimated product, was a powerful external metaphor for the most intimate inner work. The fire is your own unwavering desire for awakening. The sealed vessel is your disciplined and focused mind, committed to the process without distraction. The raw material is any fixed, heavy, or problematic aspect of your own psychology. The ascending vapor is the moment of transcendent insight where that problem is seen through and understood at a higher level. And the beautiful, crystalline deposit is the lasting wisdom and integrated transformation that becomes a permanent part of your character. The alchemist staring intently into the glass vessel was, in truth, gazing into a mirror of their own soul, observing the laws of inner transformation played out in a dance of matter and spirit. Yet to fully grasp the transformative power of sublimation, we must learn to speak the language of the alchemists themselves, a language not of dry formulas, but of living, breathing symbols. This symbolic vocabulary was their native tongue. a sophisticated code designed to convey the ineffable experiences of inner transformation to the intuitive parts of our being. They understood that the rational mind alone could never fully comprehend the mystery of the soul's ascent. It required a poetry of images that could bypass intellect and speak directly to the heart. One of the most potent and universal symbols for this process is the majestic phoenix. This mythical bird, after living a long life, builds its own funeral pyre, is consumed by the flames, and then rises anew from its own ashes, more radiant and vibrant than before. This is the perfect emblem for sublimation. The pyre is the crucible of intense experience. The fire is the heat of spiritual trial or profound self-inquiry. And the act of rising from the ashes is the volatilization of the soul's substance. The phoenix doesn't just get repaired, it is utterly remade, transcending its former state through a process of apparent destruction. It teaches us that true rebirth isn't possible without a willing surrender to the fires that seem to threaten our very existence. Soaring alongside the phoenix is another powerful avian symbol, the eagle. In alchemical illustrations, the eagle frequently represents the volatile principle, the part of the soul that has grown wings and can ascend toward the heights of spiritual understanding. Its powerful, upward flight against the pull of gravity is a direct visual metaphor for the soul's triumph over the dense, downward dragging forces of material attachment and unconscious habit. The eagle's keen, far-seeing vision symbolizes the panoramic clarity that comes with this ascent, the ability to see the larger patterns of one's life from a higher, more detached perspective. Where the phoenix represents the cycle of death and rebirth, the eagle embodies the sustained flight of liberated consciousness. It is the part of us that can observe our own drama from a place of serene objectivity, no longer entangled in the petty conflicts and fears that once seemed so all-consuming. This is why many alchemical texts speak of the eagle of the soul, representing our capacity to rise above our circumstances and gain a transcendent point of view. This theme of ascent is further reinforced by the recurring imagery of vapors, fumes, and smoke rising steadily from the heated matter in the alembic. To the modern eye, this might seem like a simple chemical observation, but to the alchemist, this ascending vapor was the soul itself in flight. It represented consciousness becoming progressively more refined and subtle, leaving behind the gross, solid state of literal, concrete thinking and moving into the realm of intuition, inspiration, and direct spiritual knowing. This is the moment when a heavy worry, held in meditation, suddenly evaporates into a profound insight. The substance of the worry hasn't disappeared. It has changed its state, becoming an airborne understanding that can now illuminate other areas of your life. Winged creatures of all kinds, butterflies emerging from cocoons, swans gliding on water before taking flight, served a similar symbolic purpose. They all point to that magical threshold moment where a profound inner shift occurs, where what was once earthbound and limited suddenly discovers its inherent capacity for freedom and takes wing. The color symbolism associated with sublimation is equally profound and nuanced. While the ultimate goal of the great work is the brilliant red of rubido, the stage of sublimation is intimately connected with the colors white and silver. After the dark, chaotic night of negrito, the first sign of successful transformation is the emergence of the white stage, or albedo. This is the color of purity, cleansing, and the reflected light of the moon. In the context of sublimation, the white color signifies the initial purification that must occur before the soul's substance can become truly volatile. It represents a state of clarity and innocence, where the mind has been washed clean of its preconceptions and emotional turmoil, creating a blank, receptive slate. This is the pristine, crystalline deposit that forms in the upper part of the alembic after the vapor condenses, the white stone of the sages, symbolizing a consciousness that has been purified and is now ready for illumination. Silver, the metal of the moon, deepens this lunar symbolism. The moon has no light of its own but perfectly reflects the light of the sun. In the same way, the stage of sublimation represented by silver is one where the individual soul, now purified, becomes a perfect mirror for the light of the higher self or spiritual sun. It is a receptive, intuitive, and reflective state. The cool, silvery light of the moon stands in contrast to the fiery, golden heat of the sun, reminding us that the heat required for sublimation is not always a burning passion. Sometimes, it is a cool, sustained, and penetrating luminescence, the light of quiet awareness and deep introspection. This white and silver phase is absolutely critical because it represents the necessary balance. It is the moment of calming the waters of the psyche after the stormy blackening, creating the stillness and clarity that allows the volatile essence to separate and ascend without being contaminated by the dross left behind. It is the dawn that makes the day's flight possible. When we bring all these symbols together, the phoenix, the eagle, the rising vapor, the colors white and silver, we see that the alchemists were not merely describing a single event, but mapping an entire ecology of the soul's transformation. These symbols work together to create a multidimensional understanding that speaks to us on every level of our being. The phoenix addresses our need for profound rebirth and renewal. The eagle speaks to our yearning for freedom and higher perspective. The ascending vapor illustrates the subtle, energetic mechanics of the process. The colors white and silver connect us to the qualities of purity, reflection, and receptive wisdom. This rich tapestry of archetypal imagery ensures that the concept of sublimation is not just an intellectual idea to be understood, but a living reality to be experienced and embodied. It is a map that guides not only the rational mind, but also the intuitive soul, inviting us to recognize these very same processes unfolding within the sacred laboratory of our own lives, as our own heaviest challenges begin to grow wings and carry us toward a brighter, more liberated state of being. But to understand the actual experience of this inner ascent, we must turn our attention to the very engine that makes it all possible, the mysterious and transformative element of fire. In the alchemical worldview, fire is far more than a simple chemical reaction. It is the primary agent of all change, the living spirit that animates the great work from beginning to end. It is the spark of life itself, the force of will, and the purifying intensity that separates the essential from the non-essential. When we speak of sublimation, we are speaking of a process entirely dependent on the intelligent application of this sacred fire. It is the catalyst that takes something solid and fixed and grants it the wings to fly, a force that paradoxically holds the power to both destroy and create in the very same instant. This is the great mystery at the heart of the operation. The same flame that reduces a block of wood to ash is the very same flame that can harden clay into pottery, cook raw food into nourishment, or illuminate a dark room. In your own spiritual journey, the fire represents those intense periods of challenge, crisis, or profound self-inquiry that feel like they are burning your old life to the ground, only to reveal that they were simultaneously forging the foundation of the person you are becoming. The alchemists, being meticulous scientists of the soul, did not see fire as a single monolithic force. They classified it into distinct types, each with its own unique properties and role in the transformative process. The first and most fundamental is what they called common fire. This is the fire we are all familiar with, the literal flame of a candle, the heat of a furnace, the warmth of the sun. In the laboratory, this was the physical heat applied to the alembic. In the inner laboratory, common fire represents the raw, often chaotic, energy of our everyday passions and desires. It is the heat of anger, the fire of ambition, the burn of lust, and the warmth of enthusiasm. In its untamed state, this fire can be wildly destructive, consuming everything in its path. A person ruled by common fire is reactive, impulsive, and easily burned by their own emotions. Yet, this very same fire, when recognized and consciously harnessed, becomes the initial fuel for the inner work. The intense energy of your anger, when you choose not to act it out, but instead to sit with it and observe it, becomes the very heat that volatilizes it. Your burning ambition, when redirected from selfish goals to the aspiration for self-mastery, becomes the driving force behind your discipline. Common fire is the raw, unrefined fuel, potentially dangerous, but absolutely essential. Then there is the secret fire, sometimes referred to as the fire against nature. This is where the process moves from the mundane to the truly mystical. The secret fire is not a physical flame at all. It is an inner, subtle energy that arises from a state of deep receptivity and conscious awareness. It is the fire that does not burn, the warmth that emerges in the heart during deep meditation or heartfelt prayer. While common fire is active and outwardly directed, the secret fire is receptive and inwardly kindled. It is often associated with the moon and the moisture of the philosophical Mercury, a cool, penetrating luminescence that works in silence. Imagine the difference between the roaring blaze of a bonfire and the gentle, consistent warmth of a compost heap, which generates heat from within as organic matter breaks down and transforms. The secret fire is this inner, organic heat of spiritual fermentation. It is the power of a quiet mind, the energy of focused attention, and the gentle but persistent warmth of unconditional love. This is the fire that works on the most resistant, fixed parts of our being, not by attacking them, but by surrounding them with a nurturing, transformative presence that gradually softens them until they are ready to sublimate. It is the fire of profound acceptance that finally allows a lifetime of grief to release its hold and ascend as a poignant, liberating wisdom. Beyond both of these is the celestial fire, the most sublime and potent force of all. This is the fire of direct spiritual illumination, the lightning bolt of grace or sudden insight that seems to come from a source beyond the individual self. If common fire is the fuel and the secret fire is the incubating warmth, then celestial fire is the divine spark that ignites the entire process. It is associated with the sun, with the stars, and with the direct influx of cosmic intelligence. This is the fire that descends rather than rises. It is the moment of Satori and Zen, the flash of understanding that reconfigures your entire worldview, the overwhelming experience of divine love that shatters the ego's defenses in an instant. Celestial fire does not slowly heat the substance. It electrifies it, causing an instantaneous phase change. A person might struggle for years with a particular psychological block, applying the steady heat of their common and secret fires through therapy and meditation. And then, in a single moment of grace, perhaps while walking in nature or listening to a piece of music, the celestial fire strikes, and the entire complex volatilizes in a flash of transcendent clarity. This fire is not something we can control or command. We can only prepare the vessel through our sincere efforts and remain open and receptive to its transformative descent. The true art of the alchemist, then, lies in learning to work skillfully with all three of these fires in concert. The journey of sublimation is not about choosing one fire over the others, but about understanding their sequence and synergy. The process often begins with the raw, chaotic energy of common fire. A life crisis, a passionate desire for change, or a burning dissatisfaction with the status quo provides the initial heat and motivation to begin the work. This is the fire that gets the process started, that pushes you onto the spiritual path. But if you remain solely in this fiery, passionate state, you risk burning out or becoming fanatical. This is where the secret fire must be cultivated. You learn to temper the roaring blaze of common fire into the gentle, consistent warmth of mindful awareness. You sit in meditation, not with forceful effort, but with a receptive, allowing presence. You apply the secret fire of the heart to your wounds, not to destroy them, but to understand and transmute them. This sustained internal heat prepares the soul's substance, making it fine and subtle, ready for the final transformation. And then, in its own time, the celestial fire may descend. This is the moment when your sincere, long-term efforts create a vessel pure enough and a vibration high enough to attract the lightning. The celestial fire completes the sublimation, carrying the volatilized essence to its ultimate destination in a flash of unifying awareness. The key for the practitioner is to recognize that we are responsible for tending the common and secret fires, for doing our inner work with sincerity and discipline, while simultaneously surrendering to the grace of the celestial fire, which operates on a timetable not our own. This is the sacred dance of effort and grace, of will and surrender. The common fire is our will, The secret fire is our loving attention, and the celestial fire is the divine response. When these three forces align within the sealed vessel of your being, the miraculous leap of sublimation is not just a possibility. It becomes an inevitable and glorious stage in the soul's ongoing journey home. That sealed vessel, which we just explored in the laboratory, is so much more than a piece of glassware. It is the single most important precondition for the entire alchemical process to even begin. Without a strong, sealed container, the intense heat of transformation would simply dissipate into the air, the volatile essences would escape, and the precious material would be lost. In our inner world, this vessel is the sacred, protected space we must consciously create within ourselves to hold the fires of change. It represents a mind that has learned to focus its attention without being pulled in a dozen directions by external distractions or internal chatter. It is a heart that can contain powerful, even painful emotions without immediately reacting or spilling them out uncontrollably. This inner vessel is your sanctuary of self-observation, the crucible where you can place your most challenging experiences and apply the heat of your awareness, trusting that the process will ultimately lead to your liberation, not your destruction. Think of it as building a kind of spiritual greenhouse, a controlled environment where delicate and precious growth can occur, sheltered from the harsh winds of daily life and the frost of cynicism. One of the most beautiful and profound symbols for this container is the philosophical egg. The alchemists would often seal their prima materia inside an ovoid glass vessel, which they would then incubate with a gentle, circulatory heat for weeks, months, or even years. This egg was a universe in miniature, representing the cosmos and the boundless potential for new life hidden within a seemingly inert shell. On a spiritual level, the philosophical egg is a perfect metaphor for your own untapped potential. The shell represents the necessary boundaries you set, the discipline of your daily practice, the commitment to your inner work, the protective circle you draw around your heart and mind to keep your process pure. Inside that shell is the chaotic, fertile mixture of your entire being, your talents and your traumas, your wisdom and your wounds, all waiting for the right conditions to coalesce and hatch into a higher expression of who you are meant to become. The gentle, persistent heat required to incubate the egg is not a violent force, but the steady warmth of your own loving attention and patient intention, applied day after day, allowing the new consciousness within you to slowly develop and strengthen until it is ready to break free. So, how do we, as modern seekers, create this vital vessel in the hustle and noise of the 21st century? The practice begins with cultivating a protected inner state, most commonly through the discipline of meditation. When you sit to meditate, you are essentially building your alembic in real time. You close your eyes, you turn your attention inward, and you consciously seal yourself off from the outside world for a dedicated period. The breath becomes the gentle, circulatory heat that warms the vessel from within. Thoughts and emotions arise, the raw prima materia of your psyche, and instead of engaging with them or pushing them away, you simply contain them within the spacious awareness of your observation. You are not trying to stop the process, you are learning to hold it. Each time you notice your mind has wandered and you gently guide it back to your anchor, whether it's the breath or a mantra, you are reinforcing the walls of your vessel, making it stronger and less porous to distraction. This daily practice is the foundational work of creating an inner container robust enough to handle the sublime pressures of genuine transformation. Beyond the internal vessel of our own awareness, we can also create tangible, external vessels to support our journey. This is the power of a sacred space. It doesn't need to be an elaborate temple. It can be a quiet corner of a room, a dedicated altar, a spot in a garden, or even a specific chair used only for contemplation. By consecrating a physical location for your inner work, you are building a psycho-spiritual anchor. Every time you enter that space, your mind and body receive a signal that it is time to shift gears, to turn inward, to become the alchemist. You can fill this space with objects that hold meaning for you, a candle to represent the sacred fire, a stone for stability, a symbol of your spiritual aspirations. This external vessel supports the internal one, providing a stable, resonant field that helps you maintain your focus and contain the energies you are working with. It becomes a physical manifestation of your commitment, a constant reminder that your transformation is a real and ongoing process. Perhaps one of the most overlooked but powerful vessels for alchemical work is the intentional community. Just as the lone alchemist in their laboratory was often part of a hidden network of adepts sharing knowledge and support, we too need the container of like-minded souls. A spiritual community, a study group, or even a single trusted friend on the path can act as a collective vessel. This group provides a sealed environment of mutual understanding and confidentiality, where you can share your struggles and breakthroughs without fear of judgment. It reflects back to you your own blind spots and celebrates your progress. The heat of collective intention, prayer, or shared practice within such a group can be exponentially more powerful than what we can generate alone. It holds us accountable, it nourishes us when our own resolve wavers, and it reminds us that the journey of sublimation, while deeply personal, is never meant to be undertaken in total isolation. Our relationships, when consciously cultivated, become living alembics where we can safely volatilize our old patterns and condense our newfound wisdom. Now, we must introduce a character so central to our story that without them, the entire drama of sublimation would be impossible. If the sacred fire is the engine of change, then this is the mysterious substance that actually undergoes the transformation, the very medium through which the miracle occurs. In the symbolic language of alchemy, this is the principle of mercury. Please don't think of the silvery liquid metal in an old thermometer. The alchemist's mercury, or mercurius, was something far more profound. It was considered the prima materia itself, the fundamental substance of the soul, the essential spirit that animates all of life. It represents the fluid, intelligent, and endlessly adaptable nature of consciousness. Mercury is the archetype of the messenger, the psychopomp who travels freely between the worlds of the solid and the gaseous, the earthly and the divine. It is this mercurial essence within you, your own conscious awareness, that possesses the innate capacity to be volatilized, to receive the imprint of the fire, and to ascend. Without a developed mercury principle, your inner world remains rigid and fixed, unable to respond to the heat of transformation. With it, you become like water, able to flow, to become vapor, and to rise to the heavens. To truly grasp Mercury's role, we need to understand the dynamic relationship between the two states it mediates, the fixed and the volatile. In your own psychology, the fixed state is everything that feels heavy, permanent, and unchanging. It's that core belief that you're not good enough, the stubborn habit of procrastination, the rigid self-image you've held onto for decades, or the traumatic memory that feels locked in stone. These are the psychological equivalents of lead dense, inert, and resistant to movement. They keep you grounded, but in the most limiting way, like chains. The volatile state, on the other hand, is characterized by freedom, movement, and expansiveness. It's the sudden flash of creative insight, the feeling of boundless love during a peak experience, the lightness of being when a long-held worry finally dissolves. This is the realm of wings and air, of spirit unburdened by form. The problem for most of us is that we tend to get stuck in one state or oscillate chaotically between them without any conscious direction. We might have a volatile spiritual experience, but then we can't integrate it, so it fades away. Or we remain so fixed in our routines and beliefs that our life feels devoid of magic and spontaneity. This is where Mercury performs its essential magic. Mercury is the bridge, the active agent that can dissolve the fixed and condense the volatile. It is the solvent and the binding agent all at once. Its primary quality is fluidity. Think of the metal mercury. If you drop it on a surface, it doesn't form a puddle like water. It breaks into 1,000 tiny, perfect spheres that roll away in every direction, only to merge back together again effortlessly when they meet. This is the quality of consciousness that Mercury embodies, an awareness that can engage with a problem from multiple angles simultaneously without becoming attached to any single perspective. It is mental and emotional agility. When you apply this mercurial awareness to a fixed complex, say, a deep-seated fear of failure, You don't just confront it head-on with brute force. Instead, you approach it with curiosity. You let your awareness flow around the fear, observing how it feels in your body, noticing the thoughts it generates, exploring its origins without judgment. This fluid, investigative attention is the mercurial solvent beginning its work, gradually dissolving the rigid structure of the fear and preparing it to be acted upon by the fire. This work of mediation gives rise to three crucial qualities that Mercury bestows upon the seeker, each one a non-negotiable ingredient for successful sublimation. The first is mental flexibility. A mind dominated by the fixed principle is brittle. It meets new information or challenging circumstances with resistance and dogmatism. It says, "This is just the way I am," or "This is how the world works." A mind infused with the Mercury principle is supple and resilient. It can entertain opposing ideas without immediately needing to choose one, allowing for a more nuanced and complete understanding to emerge. It can let go of an outdated belief when presented with new evidence, not as a failure, but as an evolution. This flexibility is what allows you to reframe a personal crisis not as a catastrophe, but as a crucible, a necessary stage in your alchemical transformation. It is the cognitive capacity to see the potential for gold hidden within the lump of lead. The second gift is adaptability. Life is constant change, and the spiritual path is no different. The fires of transformation are unpredictable. Sometimes they are the gentle warmth of gradual understanding, and other times they are the sudden, searing blaze of loss or illness. A rigid tree snaps in a storm, while a flexible willow bends and survives. The Mercury principle is your inner willow. It is the part of you that can adjust your practices, your expectations, and even your goals when faced with unforeseen circumstances. If an injury prevents you from your usual yoga practice, the mercurial seeker doesn't abandon their path. They adapt, perhaps exploring seated meditation or contemplative reading instead. This adaptability ensures that your spiritual development isn't dependent on perfect external conditions, but becomes an unshakable, dynamic process that can thrive anywhere. The third and most sublime quality is the capacity to receive higher inspiration. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. In mythology, he carried communications between Olympus and the earthly realm. Psychologically, this represents your ability to become a clear channel for insights, intuitions, and creative impulses that seem to come from a source beyond your individual ego mind. A consciousness that is too fixed and dense cannot receive these signals. It's like a radio receiver clogged with static. The work of purifying your Mercury through meditation, contemplation, and the conscious dissolution of fixed ideas is like tuning that receiver to a finer frequency. You become receptive to the celestial fire we discussed earlier. A solution to a long-standing problem appears in a dream. A sudden knowing arises during a walk in nature. A line of poetry or a musical phrase downloads into your awareness fully formed. These are not random events. They are the fruits of a mercurial consciousness that has been made volatile and receptive enough to capture the subtle vibrations of a higher intelligence, bringing the gifts of the transcendent realm back down to Earth where they can be integrated and made manifest. Now, while Mercury's fluidity provides the wings for our ascent, and the sacred fire supplies the heat, there is a third, absolutely vital principle in this alchemical trinity, one that is often the most overlooked, and yet is the very anchor that makes the entire journey possible. This is the principle of salt. If Mercury is the volatile spirit that rises and sulfur is the fiery soul that transforms, then salt is the enduring body that provides substance and form. In the grand operation of sublimation, it is salt that acts as the essential grounding agent, the stabilizing element that prevents the volatile spirit from escaping entirely and dissipating into meaningless abstraction. It is the principle of crystallization, of cohesion, and of earthy presence that ensures our spiritual flights of fancy have a home to return to. Without salt, the process of sublimation wouldn't be a transcendent journey. It would be a catastrophic explosion, a dissolution into chaos where the soul loses its connection to the very reality it seeks to transform. To understand salt's crucial role, Let's return to our laboratory metaphor for a moment. When an alchemist aimed to sublimate a substance, they weren't trying to annihilate it. Their goal was to purify it, to separate its essential, volatile spirit from its impure, fixed body, and then to bring that purified spirit back into a new, more perfect union. If the volatile essence simply flew away and was lost, the operation was a failure. The salt principle is what remained in the vessel after the volatile elements ascended. It was the fixed residue, the earthy foundation that held the potential for the entire process to be completed. This residue wasn't discarded, it was revered, for it contained the unique signature and substance of the original material, now purified by fire. In your own inner work, salt represents your physical body, your earthly consciousness, your personal history, and the concrete circumstances of your daily life. It is the anchor that keeps your spirituality real, preventing it from devolving into what psychologists call spiritual bypassing, the use of spiritual ideas to avoid dealing with unresolved emotional issues or practical responsibilities. This leads us to the beautiful and necessary balance that salt provides between volatility and fixation. A consciousness that is too volatile is ungrounded, flighty, and unproductive. It's the person who has profound spiritual experiences but can't hold down a job or maintain stable relationships. They are all wings and no roots, susceptible to every passing breeze of inspiration without the ability to bring any of it into tangible form. On the other hand, a consciousness that is too fixed is rigid, heavy, and stagnant. It's the person who is so practical and earthbound that they dismiss anything intangible, becoming trapped in materialism and routine. The salt principle is the alchemical moderator between these two extremes. It doesn't eradicate volatility. It gives it a container. It doesn't fight fixation. It tempers it. Salt ensures that when your consciousness volatilizes and rises to sublime heights, it has a specific, solid point of reference to which it can return and integrate its newfound wisdom. It is the landing pad for your spiritual excursions. This grounding function is what makes any form of spiritual elevation truly sustainable and psychologically healthy. Without a strong salt principle, the intense heat of sublimation can lead to a dangerous state often called spiritual inflation. This is when an individual, having touched a higher state of awareness, mistakenly identifies with that transcendent state itself. They might start to believe they are enlightened, special, or above the mundane concerns of ordinary people. This is a trap because it creates a dissociation from the human experience, fostering a subtle arrogance that is the very antithesis of genuine wisdom. The salt principle is the perfect antidote to this inflation. It is the humble, earthy reality check that constantly whispers, "Remember, you also have to take out the trash." It connects the vastness of cosmic awareness to the simplicity of washing the dishes, reminding you that true spirituality isn't about escaping your humanity, but about embodying the divine right here, in this body, on this earth. So, how do we consciously cultivate this vital, grounding presence, especially during periods of intense inner work when the fires of transformation are burning brightest? The practices are often deceptively simple, because salt is concerned with the tangible, the sensory, and the immediate. One of the most powerful ways to strengthen your connection to the salt principle is through a conscious, mindful engagement with your physical body. Your body is the literal salt of your being, the crystalline structure that gives your spirit a form to inhabit. When you feel ungrounded after deep meditation or a powerful emotional release, don't just stay in your head. Bring your awareness down into your feet. Feel the solid weight of your body making contact with the floor or the earth. Engage in physical activity that requires presence, walking in nature and feeling the soil beneath your feet, gardening with your hands in the dirt, practicing yoga or tai chi with a focus on the sensations in your muscles and joints. These are not distractions from your spiritual path. They are profound expressions of it, actively forging the sacred vessel that can hold your most lofty insights. Another essential practice is to establish and honor simple, grounding routines. Spirituality isn't only about peak experiences and dramatic breakthroughs, it's also about the quiet, repetitive rhythm of daily life. The consistent discipline of waking at a certain time, preparing a nourishing meal, tending to your living space, and fulfilling your worldly obligations might seem mundane. But from an alchemical perspective, this is the work of salt. These routines are the stable, crystalline structure that forms in the base of your alembic, providing a secure foundation so that when the heat is applied and the volatile essences begin to rise, they have a stable matrix to which they can return and crystallize. When you honor your commitments and take care of your practical affairs with mindfulness, you are not neglecting your spirit. You are building the very container that allows your spirit to soar safely and return with its gifts intact. Finally, embrace the alchemy of the mundane by finding the sacred in the ordinary. The salt principle teaches us that spirit is not separate from matter. It is hidden within it, waiting to be revealed. The next time you season your food, consider the salt not just as a mineral, but as a spiritual symbol of preservation, flavor, and essentiality. Can you bring that same quality of essential, grounding presence to your conversations, to your work, to a moment of quiet contemplation? By consciously inviting the salt principle into your awareness, you transform your entire life into the philosophical vessel. You realize that the ultimate goal of the great work is not to escape the world, but to spiritualize it, to bring the gold of your highest insights back down to season and preserve the very earth you walk on, creating a life that is not only transcendent in its moments of flight, but deeply, richly, and sustainably human in its everyday embodiment. If Mercury provides the wings and salt offers the grounding, then it is the fiery principle of sulfur that acts as the very engine of our inner transformation, the burning fuel that propels the entire sublime ascent. In the alchemical trinity of body, soul, and spirit, salt, sulfur, and Mercury sulfur holds the central place as the soul itself. It represents your essential character, your unique passions, and that undeniable spark of individuality that makes you who you are. This is not a destructive fire, but the vital heat of life, the energetic signature of your deepest desires and your will to become. Without this sulfur principle, the soul's substance would remain inert, a cold, passive lump of potential with no impetus to change or rise. It is the catalyst that ignites the entire operation, providing the motivational thrust that turns a philosophical concept into a lived, visceral reality of spiritual evolution. Think of the last time you felt a burning sense of purpose, a passion for a creative project, or a deep, heartfelt longing for something more in your life. That compelling energy, that inner fire that keeps you up at night and pulls you out of bed in the morning, is a pure expression of your sulfur. It is the driving force behind every great work of art, every scientific discovery, and every profound personal breakthrough. In the context of sublimation, this fiery essence is absolutely indispensable. When you apply the heat of conscious awareness to a fixed pattern within yourself, it is your sulfur, your will to be free, your desire for healing, your passion for truth, that provides the sustained thermal energy. It's what keeps you sitting in meditation when your mind is screaming to get up, what motivates you to journal through painful emotions instead of numbing out, and what fuels the courage to face your shadow with honesty. This is the sacred fire that initiates and sustains the upward movement, causing the dense matter of your psyche to vibrate, become unstable, and finally, gloriously, volatilized. The crucial art for the modern alchemist lies in learning to work with this sulfur principle consciously, navigating a delicate path between two common extremes. On one hand, there is the danger of suppression. Many spiritual traditions, misunderstood, can inadvertently teach us to extinguish our passions, to see our desires as obstacles to enlightenment. When we suppress our sulfur, we attempt to achieve a false peace by denying the very energy that animates our being. The result is a kind of spiritual stagnation, a life that may be calm on the surface, but is devoid of color, creativity, and authentic joy. It's like trying to undertake the great work with a furnace that has been shut off. The prima materia just sits there, cold and unchanging. On the other hand, there is the peril of allowing our sulfur to burn uncontrollably. This is the fire of untamed ego, of raw, unrefined desire that consumes everything in its path. It's the ambition that destroys relationships, the anger that lashes out blindly, the obsession that leads to burnout. An uncontrolled sulfur fire doesn't lead to sublimation. It leads to conflagration, reducing everything to ash without any of the intended purification. The balanced approach, then, is not to eliminate this fire, but to stoke it with wisdom and direct it with intention. This begins with the vital practice of recognizing and acknowledging your authentic desires, rather than judging or fearing them. Your desire for connection, for recognition, for creative expression, for sensual pleasure, these are not sins. They are the raw fuel of your sulfur. The first step in the alchemical process is to accept this fuel, to bring it into the light of your awareness. Instead of saying, "I shouldn't want this," you learn to say, "Ah, this powerful wanting is here. This is my life force. How can I honor its energy while directing it toward my highest good?" This shift from suppression to curious observation is the beginning of transmutation. You are not your desires, but you can use their immense power. A powerful desire for external validation, when held in the crucible of awareness, can be transmuted into a passionate drive for self-mastery and authentic self-expression. The fiery energy of jealousy can be redirected into the fuel for your own creative endeavors, inspiring you to cultivate the very qualities you admire in others. One of the most effective ways to work consciously with your sulfur is to give it a worthy and challenging object of focus. A scattered fire provides warmth but cannot forge steel. A concentrated flame can cut through diamond. In the same way, when your passionate energy is directed toward a vague or trivial goal, it tends to fizzle out or cause chaos. But when you consciously dedicate that same energy to a specific, meaningful aspect of your inner work, it becomes a laser beam of transformative power. For instance, you might consciously decide to direct your sulfur, your will and passion toward the goal of healing a specific childhood wound. You set your intention, and then you allow that fiery determination to fuel your therapy sessions, your meditation inquiries, and your journaling. The passion that might have once been wasted on resentment or blame is now focused like a burning glass on a single point, generating the intense, localized heat necessary to volatilize that old pain and transform it into understanding. This process of conscious direction is deeply supported by the power of visualization and symbolic identification. Since sulfur is a symbolic principle, it responds powerfully to symbolic language. When you feel your inner fire arising, whether as excitement, righteous anger, or deep yearning, you can visualize it not as a wild, destructive blaze, but as the controlled, brilliant flame of an alchemist's furnace. See this flame contained within the strong walls of your inner vessel, its heat directed precisely at the fixed issue you are working to transform. You can even identify personally with this sacred fire. In moments of doubt or lethargy, you can affirm to yourself, "I am not the cold lead of my resistance. I am the transforming sulfur fire. My nature is to burn, to purify, and to ascend." This is not mere positive thinking. It is an act of magical identity, a way of aligning your conscious mind with the archetypal power that sulfur represents. By speaking its language, you invite its intelligent energy to work through you, ensuring that your inner furnace burns at the perfect temperature, hot enough to effect real change, but controlled enough to preserve the integrity of the vessel. This is the masterful balance that turns raw passion into purposeful power, and personal longing into the soul's unwavering drive toward its own luminous fulfillment. Having explored the symbolic fires and vessels, we now venture into the very heart of the operation itself, to trace the delicate, intricate stages that unfold within the grand leap of sublimation. While we speak of it as a single transformative act, the alchemists understood it as a precise sequence of internal events, a subtle and sacred choreography where the soul's substance is meticulously prepared, launched, and reborn. Recognizing these 7 micro-stages within sublimation is like learning to read the fine print on the map of your own consciousness, allowing you to navigate this profound transition with greater awareness and grace, rather than being swept away by its power. This is the meticulous inner work that turns a blinding flash of insight into a lasting dawn of understanding. The journey begins not with flight, but with a final, deep cleansing in the stage known as purification. Before any substance can hope to ascend, it must first be scoured of its most coarse and clinging impurities. Imagine an alchemist working with a lump of raw mineral salt, crusted with dirt and embedded with grit. The initial purification involves carefully washing it, breaking away the loose debris, and revealing the clearer crystalline structure beneath. Psychologically, this is the crucial inner preparation. It's the moment you consciously decide to work with a specific issue, a pattern of resentment, a core fear, a lingering shame. You begin by gently observing it, naming it, and separating it from the general background noise of your psyche. You stop justifying it or blaming others for it, and instead, you take ownership of it as the raw material for your work. This initial purification is an act of courageous honesty, where you wash the wound with the clear water of self-awareness, preparing it to receive the transformative fire. Without this stage, any heat applied would simply bake the dirt and grit into place, creating a harder, more resistant mass instead of a substance ready to take wing. As this purified substance rests within the sealed vessel of your attention, the second stage gently ignites, the beginning of volatility. This is not yet the dramatic ascent, but the subtle initial stirring, the point where the solidity of the complex first begins to soften and become unstable under the persistent warmth of your focus. In the laboratory, this is when the solid material, now clean, starts to emit the faintest wisp of vapor, a silent signal that its state is becoming active and dynamic. Internally, this stage feels like a subtle loosening of a long-held knot. The fixed belief of "I am not enough," which once felt like an unchangeable truth, might begin to feel less solid. You might start to catch glimpses of its origins, or notice small exceptions to its rule. There's a sense of inner movement, a quiet fizzing or stirring as the energy trapped within the fixed pattern begins to be liberated. It's the psychological equivalent of ice beginning to sublimate on a frosty morning, not yet a cloud, but no longer a solid block. This is a delicate phase, requiring patience and a steady, gentle heat, for pushing too hard can cause the nascent volatility to collapse back into a more rigid, defended state. When the internal pressure of this volatility reaches a critical threshold, the third stage erupts, the great ascent. This is the moment most commonly associated with sublimation, the dramatic, upward rush of the soul's substance, turning from a dense, earthbound problem into a soaring, liberated insight. The vapor, once a faint whisper, now streams vigorously up the neck of the inner alembic. Psychologically, this is the breakthrough. It's the stunning moment of clarity where a lifetime of grief suddenly reveals itself as a profound lesson in compassion. It's the flash of understanding where a burning jealousy transmutes into a clear recognition of your own unacknowledged desires, fueling a new and passionate creativity. This ascent is often experienced as a feeling of weightlessness, an expansive relief, or a surge of inspired energy. The key here is that the problem hasn't been solved on its own terms. It has been transcended. You are no longer looking at the problem. You are looking from the insight it has become. You have, quite literally, risen above it, gaining a panoramic perspective that was utterly impossible when you were identified with the heavy, solid weight of the issue itself. Yet, this soaring flight cannot continue indefinitely without purpose. The liberated essence must find a new home, which brings us to the fourth stage, condensation at a higher level. As the vapor reaches the cooler, upper regions of the alembic, the domain of your higher mind and expanded consciousness, it begins to lose its frenetic energy and condense. It changes state once again, depositing itself as beautiful, delicate crystals or a pure, distilled liquid. This is the moment of integration, where the flash of insight begins to crystallize into usable wisdom. The euphoric feeling of liberation starts to settle into a calm, abiding knowing. You move from exclaiming, "I see it," to quietly contemplating, "This is what it means." For example, the volatile energy of a transcended anger doesn't just vanish. It condenses into a firm, crystal-clear principle about personal boundaries that you can now apply in your life. This condensation is vital. Without it, the ascent would be merely a temporary, euphoric escape. a spiritual high that soon fades without leaving any lasting change in your character or your daily actions. This newly condensed substance, now residing in a higher octave of your awareness, is not yet fully stable. It must undergo a second, more refined purification of the elevated substance. The initial purification removed the gross, obvious impurities, but this fifth stage works at a subtler level. It is a process of clarification, of ensuring the new insight is pure, undistorted, and free from any lingering taint of the ego's desire to co-opt it. In the laboratory, this might involve resubliming the crystals, gently heating them again to allow any final traces of impurity to separate out, leaving behind only the most pristine essence. Psychologically, this is the deep, contemplative work you do after a breakthrough. You examine the new wisdom from all angles. Is this truly a selfless insight, or is there a hidden motive of spiritual pride attached to it? Are you trying to use this new understanding to feel superior to others? This stage refines the gold of your realization, polishing it until it shines with a selfless, impersonal light. It ensures that the transformed energy is truly aligned with your highest good, and not just another, more subtle, expression of the same old patterns. With the substance now fully purified at this higher level, the sixth stage secures the transformation, fixation in the new state. This is the conscious act of making the volatile permanent, of grounding the elevated insight so firmly into your being that it becomes your new, stable reality. The alchemists sought to create the fixed mercury, a substance that retained the transformative qualities of volatility, but in a stable, solid form that would not easily revert. In your inner work, fixation is the embodiment of your wisdom. It's the process of taking that crystallized principle about boundaries and actually speaking it aloud in a difficult conversation. It's weaving the compassion born from grief into the fabric of your daily interactions. This is where will, discipline, and repeated conscious choice come into play. You are actively building new neural pathways, new habits of being, that are in alignment with your ascended state. This fixation prevents the common phenomenon of spiritual backsliding, where an initial profound experience gradually loses its power and the old patterns slowly creep back in. The energy is no longer volatile. It has become a fixed and dependable part of your character, your own personal philosopher's stone. The final, culminating stage of this internal sequence is integration. If fixation is about making the new state stable, integration is about making it seamless and whole. This is where the newly fixed substance is reunited with the rest of your psyche, no longer as a separate, elevated achievement, but as a natural and harmonious part of your entire being. The energy that once powered a debilitating fear is now fully integrated as a calm, watchful awareness. The passion that was once expressed as uncontrollable anger is now integrated as a steady, unwavering determination. There is no longer a sense of, "I have overcome this," but rather a simple, lived reality of, "This is who I am now." The process is complete. The leaden weight has not just been removed. Its essential energy has been transfigured and woven back into the tapestry of your soul, enhancing its overall strength, beauty, and resilience. This is the ultimate goal of the inner alchemy of sublimation, not to reject any part of yourself, but to redeem and integrate all of it, transforming every fragment of your experience into a vibrant thread in the magnificent and ever-unfolding tapestry of your awakened life. So what does this profound inner alchemy actually feel like in the lived experience of the body and mind? When the sacred fire is lit and the soul's substance begins its ascent from fixation to volatility, the process is rarely a quiet, invisible affair. Instead, it often announces itself through a symphony of physical, emotional, and sensory phenomena that can be both exhilarating and unsettling. One of the most common reports from individuals undergoing deep spiritual work is a distinct cascade of energy sensations throughout the physical body. You might feel sudden waves of heat or chills coursing along your spine, unrelated to the ambient temperature. This is often described as a feeling of liquid warmth or a vibrating, effervescent current, a direct somatic correlate to the mercurial substance becoming active and beginning to rise. Some people experience spontaneous tremors or gentle shaking, as if the body is literally vibrating at a higher frequency, shaking loose old, stagnant energies that have been held in the tissues. A pronounced tingling or buzzing, particularly in the hands, feet, or at the crown of the head, is also frequently noted, signaling the increased flow of life force as it circulates and seeks new pathways of expression. These sensations are not something to fear. They are the tangible evidence that the alchemical process is underway, a sign that the prima materia of your own being is actively responding to the applied heat of your consciousness. As this energy mobilizes, it often stirs up the very emotions and psychological patterns it is meant to transmute, leading to intense periods of emotional purification. Imagine the sealed vessel of your awareness becoming a pressurized container where unresolved grief, old anger, forgotten fears, and latent anxieties are all brought to the surface to be cooked. This can manifest as sudden, unexplained waves of sorrow that wash over you, or flashes of irritability that seem to come from nowhere. You might find yourself re-experiencing the emotional intensity of past events with a startling clarity, as if they happened yesterday. This is not a regression or a sign that you are getting worse. It is a critical phase of the albedo, the whitening, where the contents of your inner world are being scrubbed clean. The vessel is doing its job containing this turbulent emotional energy so that it can be heated and purified, rather than being acted out unconsciously. The key is to meet these surges with mindful observation, allowing the emotions to be fully felt without fueling their stories. See them as the dark, impure vapors that must first be released from the substance before the pure, white essence can be revealed and begin its graceful ascent. In tandem with these physical and emotional shifts, the mind itself often enters a state of heightened permeability, giving rise to what can only be described as visionary states and symbolic insights. As the ordinary, rational mind, the realm of the fixed, begins to loosen its grip, the intuitive and archetypal layers of the psyche come to the fore. This can involve vividly symbolic dreams that feel more real than waking life, where you might encounter figures like wise old sages, threatening beasts, or numinous animals, all representing different aspects of your own self-seeking integration. In deep meditation or even in moments of quiet reflection, you might receive spontaneous, non-verbal understandings or see flashes of intricate geometric patterns and swirling colors behind closed eyelids. These are the flowers of the alchemists, the sublime crystals condensing in the upper part of your inner alembic. They are not hallucinations to be dismissed, but rather the direct language of the soul, communicating the progress of the transformation in a symbolic code that bypasses the limitations of linear thought. Paying gentle attention to these visions without clinging to them can provide profound navigational cues for your journey, revealing which inner territories are currently being healed and reassembled. This profound reorganization of your inner world inevitably places new demands on your physical body, leading to a range of temporary physiological changes. The nervous system is essentially being rewired, and this upgrade can manifest in surprising ways. It's common to experience shifts in sleep patterns, such as waking up in the middle of the night with a mind buzzing with activity or feeling an intense need for more rest as the body does its deep, alchemical work. Your dietary preferences might change spontaneously, as the body intuitively seeks out lighter, more vibrational foods and rejects heavier, denser substances that would anchor the energy downward. Some practitioners report temporary changes in their sensory perception, such as hearing becoming more acute or a heightened sensitivity to light and sound. These physiological signs are the salt of your body responding to the new, volatile energies moving through it. They are evidence of the great work of incarnation, the slow, deliberate process of grounding the spirit's flight back into the earthly vessel, ensuring that the transformation is not just a mental event, but a full-bodied rebirth. Naturally, such a fundamental overhaul of one's entire being is not without its significant challenges. One of the most common and disorienting experiences is a profound sense of disorientation and the dissolution of identity. As the fixed structures of the ego, your familiar sense of I, begin to volatilize, it can feel as if the very ground beneath your feet is turning to vapor. The roles you've played, the beliefs you've held, and the personality traits you considered core to your identity may start to feel fluid, uncertain, or even false. This can trigger existential anxiety and a feeling of being untethered, as if you were losing yourself. It is crucial to recognize this disorientation not as a descent into madness, but as the necessary and promised stage of the negrito, the blackening that precedes the dawn. The old self must die for the new to be born. The stability you once knew was the stability of lead. The current chaos is the fertile ground from which the gold will emerge. Anchoring yourself in simple, grounding practices and trusting the process is essential here. This dissolution often paves the way for the most formidable challenge of the transformative path, the archetypal dark night of the soul. This is not merely a period of sadness or depression, but a profound spiritual crisis where all sense of meaning, connection, and light seems to vanish. The sacred fire feels extinguished. The vessel feels empty and cold. It is a period of intense spiritual aridity, where prayers feel unanswered and practices seem devoid of power. From an alchemical perspective, this is the ultimate test of fixation within the negrito. The substance must endure the absolute darkness and the absence of all comfort without reverting to its old, impure forms. It is a final, brutal purification of the will, a burning away of any spiritual ambition or desire for reward. The darkest night is, paradoxically, the one that immediately precedes the most brilliant dawn. It is the moment when the soul, stripped of everything, learns to burn for the sake of the fire itself, not for the light or warmth it provides. Navigating this requires immense surrender and the faith that even when you cannot feel the process is still faithfully working upon you. Alongside these profound existential challenges, you will almost certainly encounter dramatic energy fluctuations. The journey of sublimation is not a linear, upward climb, but a dynamic cycle of filling and emptying, heating and cooling. You may swing between periods of incredible, bubbling creativity and expansive love to phases of deep fatigue, lethargy, and emotional flatness. One day, you might feel connected to the cosmic source of all life. The next, you might feel utterly human and drained. These swings are the natural rhythm of the inner furnace. The intense heat required for volatilization cannot be maintained at a constant peak. It must ebb and flow. The fatigue is often a sign of integration, where the body and psyche are working tirelessly in the background to crystallize the recently gained insights into your neural wiring and cellular memory. The key is to learn to flow with these cycles rather than resist them. Honor the days of high energy by engaging in creative expression and compassionate action, and honor the days of low energy by allowing for deep rest and nourishing self-care, understanding that both are equally vital phases of the one, continuous, spiraling work of transformation. What makes these inner signs and challenges so deeply significant is that they are not isolated events. They echo a universal architecture of spiritual ascent found in wisdom traditions across the globe. One of the most striking and powerful parallels to the alchemical stage of sublimation exists within the yogic traditions of India, in the profound process known as Kundalini awakening. Both of these ancient maps describe an identical journey, the journey of a latent, foundational energy becoming active, volatilizing, and ascending to transform human consciousness at its very core. In alchemy, we follow the purified substance as it rises through the neck of the alembic. In the yogic system, we witness the ascent of the coiled serpent power, Kundalini, as it travels up the central channel of the subtle body, the Sushumna Nadi. This is not a mere coincidence of metaphor, but a profound convergence of insight into the fundamental mechanics of spiritual awakening, viewed through two different but complementary cultural lenses. At the heart of this parallel lies the concept of the central pathway. For the alchemist, the entire operation depends on the sealed vessel, particularly the long, narrow neck of the alembic or the philosophical egg. This is the sacred conduit through which the volatile essence must travel to reach its purified state. In the yogic anatomy, this role is fulfilled by the Sushumna, the primary energetic channel that runs from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. just as the alembic's neck provides a protected, focused passageway for the rising vapor. The Sushumna is the central highway for the awakened Kundalini energy. If this channel is blocked or impure, the energy cannot rise smoothly, just as a constricted alembic would cause the process to fail. Both traditions emphasize the necessity of purifying and preparing this central pathway. The alchemist cleanses their vessel with meticulous care, while the yogi purifies the Sushumna through ethical living, physical postures, and breath control, ensuring it is a clear and receptive conduit for the powerful forces about to move through it. The substance that travels this pathway is another point of remarkable alignment. Alchemy speaks of the philosophical mercury, that fluid, intelligent spirit that is the essential medium of transformation. It is the substance that becomes volatile, that carries the imprint of the soul, and that has the innate capacity to ascend. In the yogic system, the closest equivalent is prana, not just the breath, but the universal life force energy that animates all of existence. When Kundalini awakens, it is this concentrated prana, previously dormant and coiled at the base of the spine, that begins its journey. Both mercury and prana represent the active, mobile, and intelligent principle of consciousness itself. They are the bridge between matter and spirit. The alchemist seeks to purify and volatilize their mercury, while the yogi seeks to awaken and direct the flow of prana through the Sushumna. In both cases, it is the mobilization and upward movement of this essential energy that constitutes the very engine of the transformative process. The journey of this energy is also mapped with stunning similarity through a series of stages or centers. The alchemist observes the changing colors and states of the substance as it rises: the blackening of negrito, the whitening of albedo, the yellowing of citrinitas, and the reddening of rubedo. These are not arbitrary. They signify profound shifts in the state of the soul's awareness. In the yogic tradition, this ascent is marked by the activation of the 7 primary chakras, or energy centers, that are stacked like lotuses along the Sushumna. The parallels here are profound. The journey often begins at the Muladhara chakra at the base of the spine, which is concerned with survival, security, and the physical body, a state that corresponds directly to the dense, earthly fixation of the alchemical prima materia. As the energy rises, it passes through the Svadhisthana chakra, related to emotions and creativity, and the Manipura chakra, the seat of personal power and will, which can be seen as stages of purification and the initial application of inner fire. The journey continues upward to the Anahata, the heart chakra, which is universally recognized as the pivotal point of transformation. In alchemy, this is the stage of albedo, the whitening, where the purified substance shows its first true spiritual luminance. The awakening of the heart chakra represents a similar critical shift, where consciousness moves from self-centered concern to unconditional love and compassion. It is the center where the lead of the lower self truly begins its transmutation into the gold of the higher self. From there, the energy moves to the Vishuddha chakra at the throat, the center of purification and truthful expression, and then to the Ajna chakra, the third eye, which represents the dawning of spiritual vision and intuition, a clear parallel to the alchemical citrinitas, the yellowing or illumination. The final destination in both systems is the crown. For the alchemist, this is the culmination of the great work, the rubedo, where the philosopher's stone is realized, and the soul achieves a state of divine union. In yoga, this is the Sahasrara chakra, the 1,000-petaled lotus at the crown of the head, where the individual consciousness of the awakened Kundalini merges with the universal consciousness of Shiva, resulting in a state of enlightenment or samadhi. This is the ultimate fixation in the new state, the final, stable union of spirit and matter. Understanding these deep, structural parallels is far more than an intellectual exercise. It offers a powerful, cross-cultural toolkit that can profoundly enrich your personal practice, regardless of which tradition you feel most drawn to. If you are a practitioner of yoga or meditation, The alchemical framework provides a powerful psychological and symbolic language for understanding the often intense and confusing stages of a Kundalini awakening. When you experience the purifying fires of inner heat or the unsettling dissolution of old identity, you can recognize it not as a crisis, but as the necessary nigredo, the blackening that precedes all authentic rebirth. The alchemical concept of the sealed vessel offers crucial guidance on the importance of creating a stable, grounded container through lifestyle, ethical discipline, and a steady meditation practice to safely hold the powerful energies unleashed during such an awakening. It teaches the vital balance between the ascending volatile spirit and the grounding fixed salt of the body, preventing spiritual inflation and ensuring that the awakening leads to embodied wisdom, not just ephemeral experiences. Conversely, if your primary interest lies in Western esotericism or Jungian psychology, the yogic map of the chakras and the Kundalini process provides a detailed, experiential roadmap for the stages of sublimation. It gives you a tangible, somatic sense of where and how these transformations occur within your own subtle anatomy. The practices of pranayama, or breath control, offer practical technologies for generating and regulating the secret fire needed to initiate the sublimation process. The concept of the three granthas, or psychic knots, that block the Sushumna channel can be understood as specific, localized concentrations of the fixed psychological complexes that the alchemist must dissolve. By integrating the yogic emphasis on direct bodily awareness, an alchemical practitioner can move beyond a purely intellectual understanding and begin to feel the actual currents of mercury rising, the heat of sulfur burning, and the stabilizing presence of salt in their own living experience. This fusion of perspectives creates a more complete, resilient, and deeply embodied spiritual path, one that honors the universal truth that the ultimate goal of all these systems is the same: the liberation of consciousness and its glorious return to its source, having transformed the entire being in the process. Within the rich tapestry of alchemical art, there is perhaps no more elegant and potent set of symbols than the four sacred birds, each one representing a distinct phase and quality of the sublime ascent. These are not arbitrary creatures. They are living emblems of the soul's own metamorphosis, providing a visual and meditative roadmap for the practitioner navigating the invisible currents of inner change. The journey begins with the swan, a creature of breathtaking purity and grace, often depicted gliding serenely on a perfectly still lake. In the alchemical context, the swan is the herald of the albedo stage, the whitening that follows the chaotic blackening of nigredo. Its brilliant white feathers symbolize the soul washed clean of its coarse impurities, achieving a state of clarity and pristine receptivity. The swan's effortless movement on the water, leaving the muddy depths undisturbed below, teaches a profound lesson about the initial phase of sublimation. It represents the quality of detached observation, the ability to hold one's awareness above the turbulent waters of emotion and thought without being dragged under by them. To cultivate the swan within is to develop a mind that can rest in a state of peaceful, non-reactive witness, allowing the murky contents of the psyche to settle so that the pure essence can begin to separate and rise. A simple yet powerful meditative practice to invoke this energy involves visualizing yourself as the swan. Sit quietly, and with each inhalation, imagine drawing in a brilliant, cleansing white light. As you exhale, see this light purifying your entire being, forming a radiant, swan-like aura around you. Feel the quality of serene detachment, as if you were floating on the surface of a calm lake, observing the world from a place of untouchable peace and luminous clarity. As the process deepens and the purified substance within the alembic begins its active ascent, the symbol of the eagle takes flight. The eagle is the quintessential symbol of the volatile spirit itself, soaring, sharp-eyed, and utterly fearless in its ascent toward the sun. Where the swan represents the passive state of achieved purity, the eagle embodies the dynamic, active force of spiritual vision and transcendence. Its powerful wings carry it high above the landscape, granting it a perspective that sees the entire pattern of the terrain below, the interconnectedness of rivers, forests, and mountains. This is the gift of the eagle in the sublimation process, the panoramic, elevated viewpoint that comes when we rise above our personal, ground-level dramas. The eagle's famed ability to gaze directly into the sun without being blinded is a metaphor for the soul's capacity to endure the brilliant, often overwhelming, light of higher truth and spiritual revelation. It represents the volatilized consciousness that can perceive reality from the vantage point of the self, rather than the ego. To work with the eagle is to cultivate the courage to see your life and your challenges from this higher altitude, to identify the underlying patterns and spiritual lessons that are invisible when you are enmeshed in the details. An empowering meditation for this stage is to visualize an eagle perched within your heart. Feel its powerful, coiled energy. Then, in your mind's eye, feel this eagle spread its wings and launch upward, carrying your awareness with it along your spine, up through the crown of your head. From this vantage point high above your body, look down upon the landscape of your life. Observe your current situations, relationships, and inner struggles from this detached, compassionate height, and allow the eagle's sharp vision to reveal the larger meaning and purpose woven into your experiences. Yet, the path of ascent is not solely about rising. It requires a deep, often painful, process of nourishment and sacrifice, symbolized by the enigmatic pelican. In a beautiful and poignant allegory, medieval and alchemical lore depicted the pelican as a bird that, in times of famine, would pierce its own breast to feed its starving young with its lifeblood. This powerful image was adopted by alchemists to represent a critical, and often misunderstood, phase of the work, the stage of citrinitas, or yellowing, where the alchemist must offer their own personal will and energy back into the process to feed the developing spiritual embryo. The pelican symbolizes the principle of self-sacrifice, not in a masochistic sense, but as a conscious, loving act of devotion to the emerging higher consciousness. It is the surrender of the ego's petty demands and attachments for the sake of the soul's growth. In practical terms, this means willingly enduring periods of austerity, dedicating your time and energy to your practice, and sacrificing short-term gratifications for long-term transformation. The blood of the pelican represents the vital life force, our time, our attention, our emotional energy, that we must consciously pour back into the sealed vessel of our work. A profound contemplative practice linked to the pelican involves a meditation on the heart center. Sit quietly and bring your awareness to your chest. Imagine your heart as a nurturing pelican. Visualize a golden light, warm and nourishing, glowing within it. Then, with a sense of deep, willing love, see this golden light, this essential life force flowing outward from your heart to nourish any part of your being that feels wounded, underdeveloped, or in need of healing. This is not an act of depletion, but of transformative love, where you become both the giver and the receiver, feeding your own inner growth with the substance of your own compassionate intention. The culmination of this entire avian journey is, of course, the majestic and immortal phoenix. This legendary bird, consumed by a sacred fire only to be reborn from its own ashes, is the ultimate emblem of rubedo, the final reddening and the creation of the Philosopher's stone. The phoenix represents the completion of the sublimation process, where the entire being of the practitioner has undergone a total and irreversible transmutation. The fire that consumes it is the full intensity of the alchemical process, the combined heat of common, secret, and celestial fires that we explored earlier. This is not a destruction, but a glorious conflagration that burns away the very last vestiges of the old, fixed self, allowing the volatile, golden essence to coalesce into a new, eternal form. The phoenix's rebirth signifies a state of conscious immortality, not of the physical body, but of the spirit, a liberation from the cyclical patterns of unconscious suffering and a birth into a life of authentic, empowered being. To work with the phoenix is to embrace the truth that every ending contains the seed of a magnificent beginning, and that our most challenging trials are the very fires that forge our truest selves. A potent visualization for integrating this energy is to imagine a situation in your life that feels like an ending, a limitation, or a source of pain. See this situation as a pile of dry wood at the base of your spine. Then, call upon the sacred fire of your own awareness and breathe it into that wood, allowing it to ignite into a brilliant, purifying blaze. Instead of resisting the flames, surrender to them, feeling your old identity and attachments being consumed. Then, from the very center of the ashes, visualize a new, radiant form emerging, a glorious phoenix of vibrant gold and crimson, representing your liberated spirit, now reborn with wisdom, strength, and a profound connection to the eternal. Together, these four alchemical birds form a complete wingspan for the soul's journey, guiding us from the still waters of purification, on the soaring currents of vision, through the nourishing sacrifice of the heart, and into the transcendent fire of perpetual rebirth. Now that we have a map of this profound inner journey and understand its signs and symbols, the most vital question arises: how do we actually begin this work? How do we, as modern individuals with busy lives, actively engage the process of sublimation rather than just reading about it? The master key that unlocks this practical application is a dedicated and skillful meditation practice. Meditation is the active technology for becoming the alchemist of your own consciousness. It is not a passive state of blankness, but a dynamic, inner laboratory session where you directly work with the prima materia of your thoughts and emotions, applying the sacred fire of your attention to initiate the great ascent. Through specific, intentional techniques, we can learn to volatilize our heaviest energies, guide them upward, and condense them into the lasting gold of wisdom, all within the sealed vessel of our own awareness. One of the most direct and powerful ways to initiate this inner ascent is through visualization practices that consciously mimic the alchemical operation itself. Your mind is a potent creative instrument, and by directing it with symbolic intent, you can communicate directly with the deep, archetypal layers of your psyche where true transformation occurs. A profoundly effective practice is the alembic breath visualization. Begin by sitting comfortably with your spine erect, closing your eyes, and taking a few moments to settle into the sensation of your body. Now, imagine that your entire being from the base of your spine to the crown of your head is a beautiful, transparent glass alembic. The base of this vessel is in your pelvis and lower abdomen, where you often feel dense emotions and primal energies. The long and narrowing neck of the alembic is your spinal column, rising up to the crown of your head. Inside this vessel, visualize a dark, granular substance. This represents any specific issue you are working with: a worry, a resentment, a fear. As you inhale deeply and slowly, imagine a gentle, golden warmth kindling at the very base of the alembic, right at the base of your spine. This is the sacred fire of your conscious breath. With each exhalation, feel this warmth growing, not as a scorching blaze, but as a consistent, purifying heat. As you continue to breathe, watch as the dark substance begins to stir. It doesn't melt, but rather, it begins to release a fine, luminous vapor, a silvery white mist that carries the essential energy of that issue, now freed from its heavy form. With each inhalation, guide this shimmering vapor up the narrow neck of the alembic, along your spine. Feel it rising, cool and light, as it ascends. On each exhale, imagine this purified vapor collecting and condensing in the upper chamber of the alembic, the space of your head and crown, as glistening, crystalline dew or a pool of brilliant white light. Sit for a few moments, simply breathing and resting in this state of clarified, elevated awareness, having actively transmuted a heavy substance into a lighter, more refined energy. You can also harness the dynamic power of the alchemical birds we explored through guided symbolic journeying. Let's engage the flight of the eagle meditation. After settling into a meditative posture, bring your awareness to your heart center. Visualize a small, powerful eagle nestled within your chest, its eyes sharp and clear. This eagle represents your own capacity for transcendent vision. Now, bring to mind a situation that currently feels confusing, heavy, or limiting. Feel the weight of it in your body. On your next deep inhalation, feel the eagle within you stir, spreading its vast wings. As you exhale, visualize this eagle launching from your heart, carrying the condensed energy of that difficult situation with it. Watch in your mind's eye as the eagle soars upward, following the pathway of your spine, flying higher and higher. With each beat of its wings, feel your own perspective shifting. From the eagle's vantage point, high above, look down upon the landscape of your life and that specific problem. Notice how small and interconnected it seems from up here. The eagle's keen eyes see the hidden paths, the larger patterns, the lessons woven into the challenge. Allow this elevated view to fill you with a sense of spaciousness and understanding. After several minutes, on an inhalation, feel the eagle descending, bringing back not the problem, but the clarified insight, depositing this new perspective gently back into your heart before settling once more. This practice actively volatilizes a ground-level frustration into a soul-level understanding, granting you the wings to rise above any circumstance. While visualization directs the mind, the very engine that drives the entire process is the power of the breath. Breath is life force in motion, and specific breathwork techniques, or pranayama, provide the precise thermal current needed to heat the inner vessel and lift the volatile essence. A foundational practice for this is conscious diaphragmatic breathing. Often, when we are anxious or stuck, our breath becomes shallow, trapped high in the chest. This is the breath of fixation. To begin volatilizing this energy, lie down or sit comfortably and place one hand on your belly. As you inhale deeply and slowly through your nose, focus on expanding your diaphragm, allowing your belly to rise like a balloon, filling the lower lungs completely. This downward expansion grounds the energy and builds a stable base of power. Then, continue the inhalation, allowing the breath to fill your ribcage and finally the upper chest. On the exhalation, release the breath slowly and evenly, feeling the chest fall, the ribs contract, and the belly gently draw back toward the spine. This complete, wave-like breath cycle ensures you are moving a maximum volume of prana, or vital energy, stoking the inner fire and preparing the entire system for ascent. Practicing this for just 5 minutes a day can begin to dissolve chronic tension and create the internal climate necessary for deeper work. For a more direct experience of energetic elevation, you can practice Ujjayi breath with energetic ascent, also known as the victorious breath. This technique involves a slight constriction at the back of the throat, creating a soft, oceanic sound with each breath, which helps to focus the mind and generate significant internal heat. Sit with a straight spine and relax your body. Inhale slowly and deeply through your nose, and as you do, gently constrict the muscles in the back of your throat as if you were whispering a soft ha sound. This should create a gentle, snoring like whisper. Exhale in the same manner, maintaining the slight constriction. Once you have the rhythm, add the alchemical intention. On each inhalation, visualize drawing a stream of cool, silver light up from the base of your spine along your back to the crown of your head. Feel this cool ascending current. On each Ujjayi exhalation, visualize a stream of warm, golden light flowing down from the crown of your head, down the front of your body, to the base of your spine, completing a circuit. This circulating breath, known in some traditions as the microcosmic orbit, actively generates the secret fire, volatilizing energy upward and then grounding and integrating it on the descent, creating a continuous and sustainable cycle of purification and upliftment. Beyond these targeted techniques lies the foundational practice that makes all alchemical work possible: mindfulness. If visualization provides the map and breathwork provides the vehicle, mindfulness is the steady hand of the alchemist, the capacity for non-judgmental observation that allows the transformation to unfold without interference. The core practice here is mindful gap observation. Throughout your day, especially when you feel a strong, fixed emotion like anger, fear, or craving, practice inserting a deliberate pause. Instead of immediately reacting or suppressing the feeling, turn toward it with curiosity. Take 3 conscious breaths, and in that space, simply observe the sensation in your body. Where do you feel it? Is it hot, cold, tight, or buzzing? Observe the thoughts associated with it without buying into their story. In this sacred pause, You are applying the heat of pure awareness to the fixed matter of the emotion. You are not trying to change it, you are witnessing it. Very often, this simple, fearless observation is enough to initiate a subtle volatilization. The solid mass of anger begins to break down into its component parts, a sense of injustice, a feeling of powerlessness. By holding it in the light of awareness, you give it the space to transform on its own, freeing its trapped energy to rise as a valuable insight about your needs or boundaries. To systematically work with deeper recurring patterns, you can engage in a more structured mindful labeling and transmutation practice during your seated meditation. As you sit, various thoughts and emotions will arise. Instead of getting lost in them, gently label them with a neutral alchemical term. For instance, when a worried thought arises, silently note, fixation. When a moment of joy arises, note, volatility. When a feeling of groundedness is present, note, salt. This practice of labeling accomplishes two things. It creates a necessary distance between you and the content of your mind, reinforcing the sealed vessel, and it begins to teach you the ever-changing states of your own inner materia. When a particularly strong fixation arises, such as a looping anxious thought, stay with it. Breathe into the physical sensation. Imagine the sacred fire of your breath surrounding it. Then, consciously invite a transformation. Ask, what would the volatile expression of this energy feel like? You might find the dense anxiety subtly shifts into a vibrating excitement or a sharpened intuition. You are not deleting the energy, you are guiding its phase change, learning the art of inner transmutation in real time. The ultimate power of these techniques, however, is not realized in a single session, but through the cumulative effect of a consistent practice. Sporadic efforts are like lighting a match in a cold laboratory. It provides a flicker of light, but not the sustained heat needed to complete the great work. Creating a consistent practice is therefore the most crucial practical step you can take. Start not with a daunting commitment, but with a manageable one. Even just 10 minutes each morning, dedicated to one of these practices, will build the inner vessel stronger than a 2-hour session once a month. Consistency creates a psychic momentum, a groove in your consciousness that makes it easier to return to the work each day. It's the gentle, circulatory heat of the philosophical egg, steadily incubating your potential. Anchor your practice to an existing habit, perhaps right after your morning coffee or just before you brush your teeth at night. This habit stacking leverages your brain's existing neural pathways to cement the new behavior. Your meditation practice should also be a living alchemy, not something confined to a cushion. The true test of sublimation is how it translates into your daily life. As you move through your day, practice micro-meditations. While waiting in line, instead of pulling out your phone, take 3 conscious alembic breaths, feeling any impatience volatilize into presence. In a difficult conversation, practice mindful gap observation, creating a moment of space between your partner's words and your reaction, allowing a volatile insight to arise instead of a fixed, angry retort. See every moment of irritation, every flash of joy, every mundane task as more prima materia for your inner laboratory. This is how the grand stages of alchemy nigrido, albedo, citronitas, and rubido become the very rhythm of your life. A continuous, spiraling process of death and rebirth happening not in a distant myth, but in the sacred and ordinary moments of your own awakening journey. As we learn to consciously work with these energies in our waking hours, there's another, more mysterious laboratory that operates each night while we sleep, the world of our dreams. This realm offers a direct, unfiltered window into the ongoing alchemical processes within our psyche, serving as both a mirror reflecting our current stage of transformation and an active workshop where the sublimation of our deepest energies can be powerfully facilitated. While your conscious mind rests, your unconscious is wide awake, diligently sorting through the prima materia of your experiences, heating it in the crucible of the imagination, and presenting the results in the symbolic language of the soul. Dreams are not random neural static. They are the nightly bulletins from the front lines of your inner great work. showing you exactly which fixed complexes are being volatilized and what new, elevated states are beginning to condense in the upper chambers of your awareness. Certain dream themes are particularly telling signposts of active sublimation, and one of the most universal and exhilarating is the flying dream. The sensation of lifting off the ground, soaring above landscapes, and moving effortlessly through the air is a near-perfect allegory for the volatilization process itself. In these dreams, you are literally experiencing the feeling of your consciousness escaping the gravity of its ordinary, earthbound constraints. The solid ground represents the fixed, heavy aspects of your life and identity, while the boundless sky symbolizes the volatile realm of spirit, freedom, and expanded perspective. If you are struggling with a difficult situation and then dream of flying high above a city, your unconscious is showing you that the psychological energy tied to that problem is already beginning to sublimate, offering you a preview of the detached, panoramic understanding that is possible. The quality of the flight matters too. A difficult, labored takeoff might indicate that the sublimation is still in its early stages, with some resistance to overcome, while smooth, graceful soaring suggests a more fluid and advanced state of inner liberation. Alongside these liberating flights, you may also encounter powerful dreams of purification, which correspond directly to the albedo or whitening stage. These dreams often feature vivid imagery of water in its most cleansing forms. You might find yourself standing under a magnificent waterfall, feeling its powerful torrent wash away not just dirt, but layers of emotional grime and psychic exhaustion. Other common motifs include walking through a gentle, purifying rain that seems to brighten everything it touches, or bathing in a pristine, crystal-clear lake or ocean. These dreams are not merely about physical cleanliness. They are profound experiences of spiritual and emotional catharsis. The water represents the universal solvent of the unconscious, the mercurial substance that can dissolve the coagulated residues of past hurts, shame, and anxiety. Waking from such a dream, you often carry with you a tangible sense of renewal and lightness, as if your very soul has been scrubbed clean and is now reflecting a purer, more luminous light, ready for the next stage of its ascent. Perhaps the most intriguing dream encounters are those with archetypal figures, animals, and guides. When the sublimation process is underway, the deep, self-organizing intelligence of the psyche often sends forth emissaries to assist in the work. You might meet a wise old man or woman who offers a cryptic piece of advice, a key, or a map. These figures often personify the nascent wisdom of your own higher self, the inner alchemist who knows the secret steps of the Magnum Opus. Encounters with specific animals can be equally significant. A serpent might appear, not as a symbol of temptation, but as the healing, transformative energy of the Kundalini, coiled and ready to rise. A wolf could represent the integration of your wild, instinctual nature in a way that serves your spiritual pack, while a deer might signal a time for gentle grace and vulnerability. These beings are not separate from you. They are living symbols of the potent, autonomous energies within your own psyche that are actively participating in your transformation, providing guidance, protection, and the raw power needed for the journey. The transformative symbols that arise in this state are limitless in their variety, yet often revolve around the core alchemical operations. Dreams of intricate, beautiful machinery, gears turning, pistons pumping, or alembics distilling can symbolize the precise, mechanical efficiency with which your psyche is processing complex emotions. Finding a precious gemstone, a golden coin, or a beautifully crafted piece of jewelry signifies the condensation of your efforts into a tangible, valuable insight, the first appearance of the spiritual gold. Recurring dreams of navigating complex inner spaces, like vast libraries, multi-leveled houses, or mysterious underground tunnels, reflect the exploration and reorganization of the different layers of your unconscious mind. And of course, the ultimate symbol of the completed work, the phoenix itself, might make a dramatic appearance, representing a part of you that has been utterly consumed by a transformative experience and is now reborn, radiant and new. Each of these symbols is a piece of a larger puzzle, a coded message about the state of your inner laboratory. inviting you to decode its meaning and consciously align with the transformative process it represents. To truly harness the power of this nocturnal alchemy, we must move from passive observation to active participation through intentional dream work. The foundational practice for this is keeping a dedicated dream journal. This simple act is far more than just recording strange stories. It is an act of sacred reciprocity with your unconscious. By writing down your dreams immediately upon waking, you are sending a powerful message to your deeper mind that its productions are valued and important. This encourages it to communicate more frequently and clearly. The very act of writing or speaking your dreams helps to fix their volatile essence, pulling their subtle insights across the threshold into your waking consciousness where they can be integrated. Don't worry about interpreting them perfectly as you write. The initial goal is capture. Get the images, the emotions, and the basic narrative down on paper. Over time, as you review your journal, patterns will emerge that reveal the long arc of your sublimation process, showing you how a particular fear has evolved from a monstrous shadow into a manageable challenge, or how a recurring symbol of a locked door has finally appeared with a key in your hand. Beyond journaling, you can engage in a powerful practice developed by Carl Jung known as active imagination. This is a conscious, waking dialogue with the figures and symbols from your dreams. After recording a potent dream, find a quiet moment to relax and revisit the dream image in your mind's eye. Let's say you dreamed of a wounded animal. In your active imagination, you might approach that animal and ask it, "What do you need to heal?" Or, "What do you represent in my life?" Then, you quiet your own conscious mind and allow an answer to arise spontaneously from the unconscious. This is not about making up an answer, it's about listening. The animal might show you an image of a safe den, or it might transform into a different creature entirely. This practice actively continues the alchemical work begun in the dream, applying the heat of your focused attention to the symbolic prima materia until it yields further insight and transformation. It's a way of saying to your psyche, "I am here, I am awake, and I am ready to work with you," thereby bridging the gap between the unconscious dream world and your conscious, intentional life. For those seeking to direct their dream work toward a specific alchemical goal, the ancient technique of dream incubation is extraordinarily effective. This is the practice of planting a specific question or intention in your mind just before sleep, inviting your dreams to provide guidance on that particular issue. Before you drift off, you can create a simple ritual. You might light a candle, focus on your breath, and then clearly and calmly pose a question to your unconscious. It should be a meaningful question related to your inner work, such as, "What is the next step in healing my relationship with?" Or, "Show me the nature of the obstacle I am facing." Write the question down on a piece of paper and place it under your pillow. As you fall asleep, hold the question in your mind with a soft focus, not with desperate urgency. This incubated intention acts like a seed crystal dropped into a supersaturated solution, giving the volatile energies of your unconscious a specific shape around which to condense. You are programming your inner alembic for the night, and very often, the morning will bring a dream that directly or symbolically addresses your query, providing a fresh, unexpected perspective that your conscious mind alone could never have conceived. The ultimate purpose of all this detailed work, however, is not to become a master of the dream world for its own sake. The true gold is found in bringing these nocturnal insights back into the full light of your waking consciousness to fuel the continuous elevation of your awareness. This is the final and most crucial step, the condensation and integration of dream wisdom into your daily life. After you've journaled and perhaps worked with a dream through active imagination, take a few moments to consciously extract its essence. Ask yourself, if this dream were a parable, what is its core teaching? What single quality or action does it invite me to embody today? For example, a dream of flying might translate into a conscious decision to rise above a petty conflict at work, choosing not to engage in gossip. A dream of receiving a gift might encourage you to be more open to receiving help from others. You can even create a simple, tangible anchor for this insight, a small stone you carry in your pocket, a specific word you write on your wrist, or a particular scent you wear. Throughout the day, when you touch or see this anchor, it will call you back to the elevated state of consciousness you experienced in the dream, helping to fix that volatile awareness into your waking character. In this way, your dream life ceases to be a separate, mysterious realm and becomes instead the most loyal and creative partner in your great work. A faithful companion that labors through the night to ensure that each new day you awaken not quite the same person you were before, but someone a little lighter, a little wiser, and one step closer to the radiant gold of your own fully realized self. But as with any great and delicate work, the process of inner transformation cannot thrive on meditation and dream work alone. The alchemist's laboratory is not separate from the body that houses it, and the prima materia we work with is directly influenced by the very substance we consume and the rhythms we live by. Just as a master artisan would never pour muddy water or impure chemicals into their finest glassware, we must consider the quality of the fuel we provide for our own sacred furnace. The physical body, with its intricate systems and energetic pathways, is the foundational vessel for the entire alchemical operation, and the choices we make about nourishment and daily habits can either create a clear, resonant container for the soul's ascent or clog the channels with a dense, unworkable residue. This is where the ancient wisdom of alchemical living offers profound guidance, showing us that the path to spiritual gold is paved with conscious, everyday choices about what we take in and how we move through the world. The alchemical approach to diet is not about restrictive fads or dogmatic rules, but about the principle of conscious purification. The goal is to consume foods that are themselves as pure and vibrant as possible, so that the life force, or prima vita, within them can easily be assimilated and transmuted into the refined energy needed for inner work. This starts with a focus on freshness and vitality. Think of the difference between a vegetable picked fresh from a sun-drenched garden and one that has been sitting on a supermarket shelf for weeks, wrapped in plastic. The former is bursting with living energy, its cellular structure intact and radiant. The latter has lost much of its vital force, becoming more like inert matter. Alchemical nutrition favors the former, seeking out foods that are whole, minimally processed, and ideally grown in healthy, living soil. The concept here is to eat lower on the chain of fixation, to choose substances that are closer to their original, volatile, living state rather than those that have been heavily processed, denatured, and locked into dense, complicated forms that require tremendous digestive fire to break down. This isn't about perfection, but about intention. Each meal is an opportunity to choose ingredients that support the clarity and lightness of your inner vessel. Building on this foundation of purity, the principle of moderation becomes absolutely critical. In alchemy, the fire must be carefully regulated. Too little heat and nothing changes. Too much and the vessel cracks. The same is true with our consumption of food. Overeating, even of the purest foods, burdens the digestive system, diverting a massive amount of the body's vital energy, or metabolic fire, away from the subtle work of psychological and spiritual processing and toward the gross work of breaking down a heavy meal. This leaves you feeling sluggish, mentally dull, and energetically earthbound, the very opposite of the volatile state we seek to cultivate. The alchemists often spoke of starving the furnace, not in a sense of deprivation, but of precision. It's about eating until you are satisfied, not stuffed, allowing the body to remain light and the mind alert. This practice of conscious moderation is a form of alchemy in itself. It transmutes the base desire for excess into the golden virtue of self-regulation and bodily respect, ensuring that your inner fire is available for the great work of transformation rather than being constantly consumed by the demands of digestion. Beyond the simple choice of what and how much to eat, the ancient adepts placed great importance on the specific combinations of foods, guided by the theory of the four elements. They understood that different foods carry different energetic signatures. Some are heating and drying like fire, others are cold and moist like water, and so on. Combining foods wisely was seen as a way to create a balanced, harmonious, inner concoction in the stomach, which was viewed as the body's primary alembic. For instance, combining too many dense, cold, and moist foods like a heavy dairy product with a raw, watery fruit could create a chaotic, undigestible mixture, leading to the production of internal phlegm and toxins that cloud the mind and weigh down the spirit. The goal was to create meals that were energetically compatible, allowing for a smooth, complete digestion that resulted in clean energy and a clear mental state. While modern nutritional science uses different language, the underlying principle of food combining for optimal digestion and mental clarity persists, reminding us that the alchemy of the plate directly influences the alchemy of the mind. A simple practical step is to notice how different meals make you feel not just in your stomach, but in your consciousness an hour later. Does a particular lunch leave you feeling bright and focused, or heavy and foggy? Your body will give you the most direct feedback on what combinations support your own unique inner laboratory. Yet this conscious approach to nourishment extends far beyond the plate to encompass the very rhythm of our days. The alchemical process is not a chaotic explosion, but a meticulously timed sequence of heating and cooling, action and rest. Our bodies and minds are not machines. They are living, rhythmic organisms that thrive on consistent, nurturing patterns. Establishing a stable daily rhythm is like setting the gentle, circulatory heat for the philosophical egg, providing the consistent, predictable environment in which the delicate work of inner transformation can safely unfold. This begins with honoring the natural cycle of sleep and wakefulness. Prioritizing sufficient, high-quality sleep is perhaps the single most important lifestyle support for sublimation. It is during deep sleep that the body performs its most profound alchemical operations, repairing tissues, clearing metabolic waste from the brain, and allowing the unconscious mind to process and integrate the experiences of the day. To shortchange sleep is to pull your substance from the furnace before the operation is complete, resulting in a crude, half-finished product. Going to bed and waking up at consistent times, even on weekends, reinforces this vital rhythm, training your entire system to trust in the process of regular renewal. This rhythmic foundation is powerfully supported by the role of physical movement. The body is not meant to be a static vessel. Stagnation is the enemy of volatility. Gentle, mindful movement is like gently swirling the contents of the alembic, ensuring that the prima materia is evenly heated and doesn't settle into a dense, inert mass. Practices like walking in nature, yoga, tai chi, or qigong are not merely exercises for the muscles. They are technologies for circulating life force, or qi. They help to release energetic blockages, stimulate the flow of mercurial energy through the body's channels, and prevent the physical stiffness that can mirror psychological rigidity. The goal is not necessarily intense, exhaustive training, which can sometimes deplete the very energy we're trying to cultivate. Instead, it's about consistent, mindful motion that reminds the body of its innate capacity for fluidity and grace, directly supporting the soul's longing to become less fixed and more free. A daily walk, especially in a natural setting, can act as a moving meditation, literally grounding the energy of the mind into the body while also inviting a more expansive perspective. Ultimately, weaving these threads of conscious eating, rhythmic living, and mindful movement together creates a lifestyle that doesn't just allow for sublimation, but actively and gently encourages it. This is not about adopting a rigid, austere regime that becomes another source of stress. It is about making a series of loving choices that consciously support the subtle work your soul is already undertaking. It's about creating an outer life that is in resonance with your inner aspirations. This might look like beginning your day with a glass of warm lemon water and a few minutes of quiet sitting instead of immediately checking your phone. It could mean preparing a simple, nourishing lunch with attention and gratitude, eating it without distraction. It might involve a commitment to turning off screens an hour before bed to allow your nervous system to cool down and prepare for the deep alchemy of the night. Each of these choices is a small but powerful act of alchemy in itself. You are taking the base lead of unconscious habit and, through the applied heat of your intention, transmuting it into the golden routine of a conscious life. You are building, day by day and meal by meal, a physical and energetic vessel so strong, so clear, and so resonant, that when the sacred fire of transformation descends, it finds a container worthy of holding its brilliant and liberating light. Nowhere does the sublime fire of alchemy burn more intensely than in the crucible of our closest relationships. If you want to see your own prima materia laid bare, all the raw, unrefined lead of your fears, your projections, and your deepest wounds, just look at the dynamic you have with your partner, your family, or your closest friends. These connections are not merely a backdrop for our spiritual lives. They are the primary furnace where the great work of transformation is forged in real time. Our relationships act as powerful mirrors, reflecting back to us with unflinching honesty exactly which parts of ourselves are still fixed, heavy, and in need of purification. That simmering resentment you feel toward a colleague, it's a signal that a part of your own personal power is lying dormant, waiting to be claimed and volatilized. The intense jealousy that flares up in a romantic partnership, it's not just an emotion to be suppressed. It's a dense, psychological ore containing within it your own unacknowledged desires and feelings of lack, begging to be heated by conscious awareness until it transforms into the fuel for your own self-worth and creative expression. Every conflict, every moment of friction, is an alchemical recipe placed before you, listing the precise ingredients of your own shadow that are ready to be worked on. This transformative potential reaches its most profound and beautiful expression in the alchemical concept of the chemical wedding, or hieros gamos. Far from being a simple metaphor for a happy marriage, this is one of the most potent symbols in the entire esoteric tradition, representing the sacred union of opposites within the soul. In the laboratory, the chemical wedding was depicted as the marriage of the king and queen, Sol and Luna, sulfur and mercury, the fiery, active principle, and the fluid, receptive spirit. This union wasn't a blending into a bland sameness. It was a dynamic, creative tension that gave birth to an entirely new, transcendent entity, the enlightened consciousness, or the philosopher's stone. In our human relationships, this plays out as the powerful attraction and subsequent friction between two individuals. The initial chemistry we feel is often the soul's recognition of a missing opposite, a quality in another that we have repressed within ourselves. A fiery, impulsive person might be drawn to a calm, methodical one, not by accident, but because their psyches are seeking balance and completion. The relationship itself becomes the sealed vessel where this inner union can be enacted. The true work of the chemical wedding, however, begins after the initial romance fades, when the idealized projections fall away and we are left with the reality of another separate, flawed human being. This is where the alchemical furnace gets stoked. Your partner's stubbornness will inevitably trigger your own rigidity. Their emotional volatility will challenge your need for control. In this sacred conflict, you are being presented with a golden opportunity. Instead of seeing your partner as the problem, you can learn to see them as the essential catalyst for your own sublimation. Their traits, which you find so difficult, are often the external manifestation of the very qualities you need to integrate within yourself. The goal of the chemical wedding is not to create a conflict-free relationship, but to use the inevitable friction as the sacred fire to volatilize your own fixed positions. Through the challenging, beautiful, and often painful process of loving another person, you are forced to dissolve the boundaries of your own ego, allowing your inner king and queen, your will and your intuition, your strength and your vulnerability, to finally meet, converse, and give birth to a more whole and compassionate you. Navigating this process consciously requires a specific set of alchemical skills, especially during periods when one or both partners are undergoing intense personal transformation. The first and most crucial skill is learning to hold the tension of opposites without rushing to a premature resolution. When a conflict arises, the untrained instinct is to either fight to win or flee to avoid discomfort. The alchemist, however, learns to sit in the fire. This means allowing the disagreement to exist, feeling the full heat of the conflicting emotions, your anger, your hurt, your fear, without immediately acting them out or suppressing them. You contain this energy within the vessel of your shared commitment and your own mindful awareness, in this contained space, a magical thing begins to happen. The solid, fixed positions of "I'm right and you're wrong" start to become unstable. They begin to volatilize, releasing their latent energy, which can then rise as a more nuanced understanding of the situation. What was a fight about forgetting to take out the trash can, when held in this sacred tension, transform into a profound insight about respect, shared responsibility, or unmet emotional needs. The base metal of a petty argument is transmuted into the gold of deeper intimacy. This inner work must be supported by conscious communication, which in alchemical terms is the art of distillation. Just as the alchemists would carefully separate the pure from the impure through repeated heating and cooling, we must learn to distill our raw emotional reactions into clear, truthful expression. Before speaking from a place of triggered emotion, take a moment to apply the inner fire of reflection. Ask yourself, what is the fixed pain beneath this volatile feeling? What is the essential truth I need to communicate? This process purifies the communication, removing the corrosive impurities of blame, accusation, and exaggeration. Instead of saying, "You never listened to me," which is a heavy, leaden statement, the distilled, golden expression might be, "I feel hurt and unseen when I'm speaking, and I sense your attention is elsewhere. My core need is to feel heard and valued." This refined language is far more likely to be received and understood, turning a potential battle into an opportunity for mutual growth and creating an emotional atmosphere where sublimation can flourish for both individuals. Recognizing whether a relationship is currently serving as a supportive crucible or an obstructive weight is a vital discernment on the spiritual path. A relationship that supports sublimation will feel challenging at times, but ultimately expansive. It's a connection where conflicts, though difficult, regularly lead to greater self-awareness and deeper connection. You feel safe to be vulnerable, to express your evolving beliefs, and to make mistakes. Your partner acts as a gentle mirror, reflecting your blind spots with compassion, and celebrates your growth even when it changes the dynamics between you. There is a shared, unspoken commitment to truth and authenticity over comfort and the status quo. The vessel of the relationship feels strong and sealed. It can contain the heat of transformation without cracking. You emerge from periods of friction feeling lighter, wiser, and more connected, not resentful and drained. In contrast, a relationship that obstructs sublimation will feel constricting and depleting. The conflicts are cyclical or repetitive, and never seem to lead to new understanding or resolution. They are like a substance that melts but never volatilizes, cooling back into the same solid shape every time. You may feel that you have to hide parts of your spiritual journey or downplay your growth to avoid triggering jealousy, judgment, or insecurity in your partner. The relationship dynamic actively reinforces your fixed patterns, your fears, your insecurities, your limiting self-concepts rather than challenging them in a productive way. If the vessel of the relationship is fragile, any attempt to apply the heat of honest communication causes it to shatter into accusations and withdrawal. In such a case, the relationship itself may become the primary fixed substance that needs to be worked upon. Sometimes, the most profound act of sublimation is to apply the sacred fire of conscious choice to the relationship itself, courageously volatilizing the form of the connection so that both individuals are free to continue their ascent, even if it means parting ways. The ultimate test is not whether a relationship lasts forever, but whether it serves the liberation and highest good of both souls involved in the sacred, and often demanding, chemical wedding of the heart. Consider for a moment the profound urge to create something beautiful, to give form to a feeling that words alone cannot capture. This powerful impulse, it turns out, is one of the most accessible and potent forms of alchemical sublimation available to us. When you engage in artistic expression, you are essentially building an external alembic, a tangible vessel where the invisible energies of your inner world can be heated, transformed, and given a new, elevated form. The canvas, the page, the instrument, or the dance floor becomes your laboratory. and the creative act itself is the precise application of sacred fire that turns the leaden weight of raw emotion or unchanneled life force into the spiritual gold of a poem, a melody, or a gesture of breathtaking grace. This is not merely about making art for art's sake. It is a sacred technology for inner transformation, a way to consciously participate in the volatilization of your own being. Think of a powerful, swirling emotion that feels too big to hold inside, perhaps a sorrow so deep it has no name, or a joy so expansive it seems it might break you open. In its raw, unexpressed state, this energy is fixed. It sits heavily in your chest or your gut, influencing your mood and thoughts from the shadows. But when you pick up a paintbrush and let your hand move across the canvas without a predetermined plan, you are beginning the alchemical process. The emotion itself becomes the prima materia. The focused attention you give to the act of painting is the gentle, consistent heat of the secret fire. As you mix colors, make strokes, and lose yourself in the flow, something magical happens. That solid mass of feeling begins to volatilize. It doesn't disappear, it changes state. The grief is no longer a crushing weight, but is now translated into the somber, beautiful blues and grays of a landscape. The joy becomes a burst of vibrant yellow and swirling forms. The energy has ascended from being a trapped, personal sensation to becoming a universal expression that can now be witnessed, understood, and even shared. The artwork is the condensed, crystalline substance collected in the upper chamber of your alembic, the tangible proof of your inner sublimation. This transformative power is beautifully exemplified in the art of poetry. The poet takes the chaotic, often contradictory material of human experience, memory, love, loss, revelation, and subjects it to the intense heat and pressure of linguistic form. The fixed rules of meter, rhyme, and structure act as the sealed vessel, containing the volatile emotional content and forcing it to refine itself. A raw, inarticulate rage, when pressed into the crucible of a sonnet, cannot simply explode. It must find a more elegant, potent expression. The poet wrestles with words, applying the fire of their concentration until the base metal of a painful experience suddenly sublimates, rising as a perfect, piercing metaphor that captures the truth of the matter in a way that straightforward description never could. The resulting poem is not just a description of an emotion. It is the emotion itself, volatilized and made transcendent. Reading a great poem can feel like witnessing a completed alchemical operation. The leaden burden of a common human struggle has been spun into a golden thread of shared understanding that connects us all. Music offers another profound channel for this energetic ascent, working directly with vibration, the most fundamental substance of the universe. When a composer feels a surge of inspiration, they are essentially perceiving a volatile spiritual energy, a melody or harmonic progression that exists in a non-physical realm. Their work is to capture this vapor and condense it into the fixed form of musical notation. For the performer and the listener, the process is one of re-sublimation. The performer takes those fixed notes on the page and, through the fire of their technique and emotional interpretation, volatilizes them back into living sound. This sound, these vibrations, travel through the air and enter our bodies, where they interact with our own inner prima materia. A stirring piece of music can act as an external furnace, applying its resonant heat to our own fixed emotions, causing them to vibrate, loosen, and rise. A feeling of longing might be catalyzed by a haunting cello line, volatilizing into a sweet, poignant recognition of beauty. A suppressed passion might be ignited by a driving rhythm, transforming into the energy for empowered action. Music doesn't just represent sublimation, it performs it upon us in real time. Then there is dance, perhaps the most direct and embodied form of this alchemy. In dance, the human body itself becomes the living alembic. The dancer takes the raw, often unspoken energies of their psyche, the fixed tensions, the hidden joys, the stories trapped in the musculature, and applies the sacred fire of movement. This is not a mental process, it is a somatic one. A rigid shoulder holding the residue of old responsibility is coaxed into a fluid, spiraling motion. The heat of the dance volatilizes that physical fixation, and the energy that was locked in stiffness is liberated as expressive grace. The entire performance becomes a visible demonstration of sublimation. The heavy, gravitational pull of the earth is repeatedly overcome as the dancer leaps and turns, their body becoming the volatile essence in flight. The journey of a dance often mirrors the alchemical stages, beginning in a low, grounded position, moving through struggle and conflict, reaching moments of effortless elevation, and culminating in a final pose that represents a new, integrated state of being. Through dance, we don't just watch sublimation, we enact it with our entire physical form. Among the visual arts, those that consciously work with light and transparency hold a special place in this discussion. Think of stained glass windows in a cathedral, where solid, colored glass is arranged to capture the light of the sun. The glass is the fixed substance, but its true purpose is only fulfilled when it is penetrated by the volatile light, which it then transmutes into a shower of brilliant, colored rays that fill the inner space. This is a perfect metaphor for the soul undergoing sublimation. The artist working with glass, resin, or translucent layers is engaged in a literal process of making the solid spiritual. They are building a vessel designed not to contain, but to transmit. When you create a piece of art that plays with light, you are externalizing a deep inner truth, that your own fixed nature is not an endpoint, but a medium through which a higher, volatile consciousness can shine, transforming your entire being into a source of illumination for yourself and others. To bring this powerful concept into your own life, you can engage in simple, practical exercises that use artistic expression as a conscious tool for inner alchemy. One profoundly effective practice is automatic drawing or writing for volatilization. When you feel stuck or burdened by a heavy emotion, set a timer for 10 minutes. Take a large sheet of paper and a soft pencil or some colored pastels. Without any plan or intention to create a good drawing, simply allow your hand to move. Let the feeling in your body guide the marks: hard, angry slashes, tight, fearful circles, soft, sad smudges. The goal is not the final image, but the process. You are applying the heat of your motor activity to the fixed emotion, encouraging it to volatilize onto the page. Often, by the end of the session, you will feel a noticeable lightening, as if the energy itself has been transferred out of your body and into the artwork. You can then ritualistically dispose of the paper, symbolizing the release of the volatilized energy back to the universe. Another beautiful practice is sculpting with light and shadow. This requires only a dark room, a single light source like a lamp or a candle, and your own body or some simple objects. Arrange the objects or move your hands between the light and a blank wall, observing the shadows they cast. Your focus here is on the intangible, the shadow, which is the volatile essence of the solid object. Play with shaping the light and the darkness. This exercise trains your perception to value the volatile as much as the fixed. It teaches you that your solid form is constantly casting a volatile shadow, and that by changing your position or your shape, you can alter the nature of that which you project into the world. It's a meditation on the relationship between your fixed self and your volatile spirit, demonstrating how they are inseparable partners in the dance of creation. Ultimately, engaging in artistic expression as a form of sublimation makes the invisible processes of your soul stunningly tangible. A completed poem is the condensed wisdom of a healed heartache. A finished painting is the solidified light of a transcended fear. A danced sequence is the embodied memory of a liberated limitation. These creations become external landmarks on your internal map, proof positive that the great work is not a mythical legend, but a living, breathing process that you can touch, see, and hear. They are the flowers of your inner labor, the beautiful, crystalline evidence that you are successfully learning the most important art of all. The art of turning the very stuff of your life into a masterpiece of continuous and conscious becoming. Yet for all its transformative brilliance, the path of sublimation is rarely a smooth and straightforward ascent. Like any great and delicate art, it is fraught with potential missteps and treacherous terrain, where even the most sincere seeker can stumble. One of the most seductive and common of these detours is what modern psychology calls spiritual bypassing. This is the subtle, often unconscious, attempt to use spiritual ideas or practices to sidestep unresolved emotional issues, developmental wounds, and fundamental human needs. Picture an alchemist who, instead of carefully washing the raw prima materia, simply paints the outside of the alembic a brilliant white and declares the work of albedo complete. That is the essence of spiritual bypassing. It's when we use the language of transcendence to avoid the messy, difficult work of transformation. We might talk about being one with everything while being unable to hold a compassionate conversation with a family member. We might seek elevated states of consciousness through intense meditation, yet remain completely disconnected from the anger or grief stored in our bodies. This is an attempt to volatilize the spirit without first honoring and working with the fixed salt of our earthly humanity, and it creates a fragile, hollow spirituality that cracks under the slightest pressure of real life. This urge to bypass often leads to a particularly dangerous pitfall: forced sublimation through sheer willpower. In our eagerness for growth, we can mistakenly believe that if we just push hard enough, meditate long enough, or visualize intensely enough, we can make transcendence happen. We treat the soul like a project to be managed rather than a mystery to be unfolded. This approach is like an impatient alchemist cranking up the furnace to a roaring blaze, hoping to force the vapor to rise faster. But a fire that is too hot, too fast, doesn't purify. It scorches and destroys. It can fracture the delicate vessel of the psyche, leading to burnout, mental exhaustion, and a kind of brittle spirituality that is devoid of genuine warmth and compassion. The sacred fire of alchemy is not the brutal force of a blowtorch, but the gentle, consistent warmth of an incubating heat. Organic transformation respects its own timeline. It understands that the fixed matter of a core wound or a lifelong pattern has its own density and history, and it cannot be rushed without causing damage. True sublimation is a cooperative process between your conscious intention and the deep, autonomous wisdom of your own being. It is an act of guided unfolding, not a feat of mental domination. So how can you tell if you're authentically progressing or merely spiraling in a bypassing pattern? A key indicator is the relationship between your inner experiences and your outer life. Authentic sublimation naturally leads to greater embodiment, not less. The insights you gain during meditation should gradually translate into more patience, more kindness, and more skillful action in your relationships and work. If your spiritual practice seems to exist in a separate compartment from your daily life, if it makes you feel special or superior to others, or if you find yourself dismissing basic human needs like healthy boundaries, financial responsibility, or emotional vulnerability as unenlightened, these are red flags for bypassing. Another clear sign is a lack of integration. You might have profound peak experiences, moments of bliss, visions, or a sense of cosmic unity, but if they don't leave a lasting, positive change in your character, if they evaporate without a trace the moment you face a mundane stressor, then the volatilization has not been followed by a true condensation and fixation. The energy rose, but it wasn't captured and grounded into a new way of being. Navigating this path also requires learning to recognize when you've become stuck in a particular phase of the process. Every alchemist encounters moments where the substance refuses to change, where the fire seems to have no effect, and a sense of stagnation sets in. Perhaps you've done the work of Negrito, confronting your shadows, but now you're mired in a lingering depression or cynicism, unable to move into the clarity of albedo. Or maybe you've achieved moments of beautiful volatility, feeling connected and inspired, but you can't seem to condense that energy into a stable new identity, constantly swinging back into old habits. This resistance is not a sign of failure, it is an integral part of the work. The fixed state has a certain inertia, a comfort in its known density, and it will naturally resist the destabilizing process of being turned to vapor. When you meet this resistance, the answer is rarely to push harder. Often, it's to adjust the heat. This might mean pulling back from intense practices and focusing on gentle, grounding activities, spending time in nature, focusing on physical care, or engaging in simple, nourishing routines. It's about strengthening the salt principle. ensuring the vessel is stable enough to contain the next stage of the process. Working through this resistance skillfully requires a delicate balance, a conscious avoidance of the two great extremes that have haunted spiritual seekers for millennia. On one side lies the pitfall of material fixation, where we become so identified with the solid, physical world that we dismiss the very possibility of sublimation. This is a life lived entirely in the base of the alembic, where consciousness is dominated by possessions, status, sensory pleasures, and literal thinking. It is a heavy, grounded existence, safe perhaps, but devoid of magic, mystery, and the profound sense of meaning that comes from connecting to something greater than oneself. The soul in this state is like a bird that has forgotten it has wings, convinced that the only reality is the branch upon which it sits. The opposite extreme is spiritual dissociation, where we become so enamored with the volatile realms that we lose our connection to the earthly vessel altogether. This is the danger of flying too high without a tether. It can manifest as a denial of the body's needs, a neglect of worldly responsibilities, a floating sense of disconnection from ordinary life, and an inability to function in practical matters. The goal of alchemy is not to choose between the base and the summit, but to forge a living, dynamic connection between them, and to have our feet firmly planted on the earth while our head touches the heavens, allowing the energy to flow freely between the two. The master key to maintaining this essential balance is the cultivation of what we might call conscious oscillation. Rather than seeking a static, permanent state of elevated consciousness, we learn to move fluidly between engagement with the world and retreat into our inner sanctuary. We honor the need for both action and reflection, for both earthly responsibility and spiritual flight. This is the rhythmic breathing of the soul. After a period of deep meditation or intense inner work, we consciously bring our awareness back to the physical body, to the senses, to the simple act of making a meal or walking the dog. We practice grounding the lightning. Conversely, when we feel bogged down by the demands of daily life, we consciously create moments of volatility, a few minutes of mindful breathing, a walk in a park to look at the sky, listening to a piece of music that lifts our spirit. This isn't an erratic swinging from one extreme to another, but a wise and rhythmic pulsing, like the tide, that ensures neither the fixed nor the volatile state is allowed to completely dominate. It is in this sacred rhythm, this constant, loving dialogue between our earthly salt and our celestial mercury, that the great work of sublimation finds its surest, most sustainable, and most profoundly human expression. But here's the secret that the true masters of the art always held closest to their hearts. The ultimate purpose of this entire magnificent journey of sublimation, from the dark night of the soul to the soaring flight of the phoenix, was never meant to end with you simply feeling better, more enlightened, or personally liberated. That is a beautiful and necessary stage, but it is not the final destination. The alchemists spoke of a profound and non-negotiable final law, the philosopher's stone, that perfected golden consciousness you have labored so long to create, is not for hoarding. It is for giving away. The spiritual gold you have forged in the secret fires of your own being has a single, overarching purpose to be used as a universal medicine for the healing and transformation of the world around you. The energy you have elevated through your own struggles is not meant to be kept in a private treasury. It is a current that, by its very nature, must flow outward. It seeks expression in service. This principle transforms the entire spiritual path from a self-improvement project into a sacred ecology. Imagine a mountain lake, high in the peaks, fed by melting snow. The water is pristine, clear, and full of life. It doesn't just sit there admiring its own purity. It begins to flow naturally and inevitably downhill. It becomes a stream that nourishes the forests, a river that quenches the thirst of towns and cities, and eventually merges with the vast ocean. Your own sublimated consciousness is that mountain lake. The process of inner alchemy has purified your waters, and now, the only thing left to do is to let them flow into the world. This is not an obligation or a moral commandment. It is the inherent nature of the substance itself. Volatilized energy is dynamic, creative, and outward moving. When you truly change on the inside, that change radiates, Your calm becomes a calming presence for others. Your clarity helps cut through collective confusion. Your compassion becomes an active force that heals wounds you may never even see. This is why the old texts are so adamant that the stone must be used for the benefit of all. A person who achieves a high state of spiritual realization and then retreats from the world to enjoy it in solitude was considered, in the alchemical view, to have failed the final and most important test. They are like a gardener who cultivates a miraculous, life-giving seed, nurtures it into a magnificent tree that bears miraculous fruit, and then builds a high wall around it, eating the fruit alone while the world outside starves. The true philosopher's stone is an agent of transmutation. Just as a tiny fragment of the stone was said to be capable of turning a mass of lead into gold, the presence of a genuinely transformed individual has a catalytic effect on their environment. Their very being acts as an alembic for the collective, elevating the vibration of every situation they enter and making it easier for others to begin their own transformative work. So, how does this sublimated energy actually express itself in the world? It manifests through three primary interconnected channels: as boundless compassion, as practical wisdom, and as the astonishing ability to serve effectively without depleting yourself. Let's start with compassion. This is not the sentimental pity or distant sympathy we often think of. Alchemical compassion is a fierce and clear-eyed force. It is the direct result of having voluntarily descended into your own negrito, your own inner darkness, and having faced your own shadow. When you have intimately known your own pain, your own fear, and your own capacity for pettiness, you can no longer project those qualities onto others as their fundamental identity. You see the struggling, confused human being behind the offensive behavior. You recognize the unhealed wound behind the angry outburst. This isn't a mental understanding. It's a visceral, energetic resonance. Your heart, having been broken open in your own alchemical fire, now has room for the suffering of the world. This compassion is active and intelligent. It doesn't just feel sorry for someone. It seeks to understand the root of their pain and offer the precise medicine, whether that's a kind word, a firm boundary, or a silent holding of space. This leads directly to the manifestation of wisdom. The volatilization process gives you access to a perspective that is both panoramic and profoundly practical. You've risen like the eagle, so you can see the larger patterns at play in any human dilemma. You understand that a personal crisis is often also a spiritual initiation, that a collective conflict holds the seeds of a new synthesis. This wisdom allows you to serve not by imposing solutions, but by asking the right questions. You become a mirror that helps others see their own situation with greater clarity. You can offer guidance that is free from the distortion of your own unmet needs and unhealed wounds, because you've done that work. Your advice comes not from a textbook, but from the living truth of your own journey through the crucible. This is the wisdom of the healed healer, the wounded healer archetype that is so central to the alchemical tradition. Your scars have become your credentials, and your hard-won insights become a lamp for others still walking through their own dark nights. Perhaps the most miraculous manifestation of all is the development of a sustainable, inexhaustible energy for service. So many of us burn out in our attempts to help others because we are drawing from a limited, personal well of energy. We are giving away our own fixed, untransmuted substance, and eventually the well runs dry. We become resentful, exhausted, and cynical. This is service from the level of lead. But when you serve from a sublimated state, you are no longer giving from your personal reserves. You have become a clear channel for a universal, life-giving energy. It's the difference between trying to water a garden with a single, personal bucket of water and being a connected irrigation pipe from an endless, artesian spring. You serve not because you feel you should, but because it is the most natural and joyful expression of what you have become. The energy flows through you, and in the act of giving, you are yourself replenished. This is the secret of the philosopher's stone as the elixir of life. It bestows not physical immortality, but an endless vitality of spirit that is renewed precisely through its generous application. We can see this principle embodied in towering figures throughout history. whose personal transformations became a catalyst for global change. Consider someone like Mahatma Gandhi. His entire life was a brutal alchemical ordeal. He endured repeated imprisonments, long fasts that brought him to the brink of death, and the constant heat of political and personal opposition. This was his Negrito, his Albedo, his Citronitas. Through it all, he applied the secret fire of non-violent resistance and unwavering truth. He sublimated his personal anguish and the collective suffering of his people into a volatile, irresistible spiritual force, satyagraha, or truth force. This wasn't a political strategy. It was a manifestation of his philosopher's stone. He didn't just free India. He gave the entire world a new, potent technology for social and spiritual change, a way to transmute the lead of oppression into the gold of liberation. Or look at the life of someone like Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the unimaginable horrors of the Nazi concentration camps. In that ultimate crucible of suffering, where most human spirit was broken, Frankl undertook a profound inner alchemy. He volatilized his fixation on his own torment by discovering that even in the most degrading circumstances, one could choose one's attitude. He found meaning in the midst of meaningless brutality. His sublimated consciousness condensed into his groundbreaking school of logotherapy, and his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which has since served as a philosopher's stone for millions, offering them the spiritual gold of hope and purpose forged in the most infernal of fires. He took the absolute lead of the Holocaust and transmuted it into a universal medicine for the human soul. You don't need to be a world historical figure to live this principle. Every day, in quieter ways, people who have done their inner work are acting as agents of the stone. The teacher who, having overcome their own learning disabilities, now possesses an infinite patience and creative skill to reach every child in their classroom. The entrepreneur who, after a devastating business failure, used that heat to volatilize their understanding of success and now leads a company that prioritizes the well-being of its employees and the health of the planet. The parent who, having healed their own childhood wounds, breaks a generational cycle of trauma and creates a home filled with authentic love and security. In each case, the individual's personal lead, their pain, their failure, their limitation was not discarded. It was honored as the essential prima materia, subjected to the fire of conscious work, and transformed into a unique gift that they now effortlessly offer to the world. Their service is not a burden. It is the joyous and inevitable overflow of their own completion, the final, glorious proof that the great work was truly and successfully accomplished. Now that we've journeyed through the symbolic fires and the soul's great ascent, we arrive at the most crucial and often most overlooked phase of the entire alchemical process, the return. Imagine an alchemist who has successfully volatilized their substance, witnessing its glorious rise as a shimmering vapor to the top of the alembic, only to forget the final, essential step of collecting the purified crystals. All that sacred work, all that transformative heat, would be for nothing if the liberated essence isn't gathered and put to use. This is the profound task of integration, the conscious art of bringing the gold of your spiritual elevations back down to earth, weaving your most transcendent insights directly into the fabric of your daily existence. It's the difference between having a fleeting, ethereal experience and embodying a permanent, unshakable wisdom that reshapes your world from the inside out. Think of this integration as the final, masterful operation in the sacred laboratory of your life. You've done the difficult work of turning lead into gold within the sealed vessel of your meditation or during a profound personal breakthrough. But that gold is still volatile. It exists as a potential and inspired feeling, a momentary clarity. For it to become the legendary philosopher's stone, a tangible substance that can transmute the very quality of your life, it must be fixed. It must be pounded with patience and deliberate care into the very marrow of your bones, the habits of your speech, and the choices of your everyday. This is where the spiritual truly becomes practical, where the magic you discovered in the heights becomes the mastery you live in the here and now. Without this grounding, the most beautiful spiritual awakening risks becoming just another story you tell yourself, a lovely memory that has little power when you're stuck in traffic, facing a difficult conversation, or dealing with a mundane disappointment. So, how do we actually perform this alchemy of integration? It begins with a simple yet profound shift in intention. Instead of seeking escape from the world through spiritual practice, we begin to see the world itself as our primary raw material. Your work, your relationships, your community, these are not distractions from your path. They are the anvil upon which your inner gold is forged into a usable form. The first practical method is what we might call conscious embodiment. This means taking the elevated state you experience, and perhaps a feeling of boundless peace from meditation or a surge of creative inspiration, and actively anchoring it into your physical body before you even rise from your seat. As you complete your practice, instead of jumping immediately back into mental activity, take a few extra moments. Bring your full awareness down from the crown of your head, down through your neck and shoulders, feeling it pour like a heavy, golden liquid into your chest, your belly, your legs, and all the way down to the soles of your feet. Feel the weight of your body in the chair, the contact of your feet with the floor. You are, in that moment, condensing the vapor back into a solid, physical presence. This simple act bridges the gap between the volatile and the fixed, ensuring that your spiritual gains don't just float away, but are downloaded directly into your cellular being. From this embodied state, you can then engage in the alchemy of intentional action. This is where you consciously use your daily activities as the crucible for your transformation. Let's say your meditation has revealed a deep insight about the importance of patience. The old you might have acknowledged this intellectually and then promptly lost your temper an hour later. The integrating alchemist, however, sets a conscious intention. Today, I will practice condensing the virtue of patience into my work. You then go into your day not just hoping to be patient, but actively looking for opportunities to forge it. When a colleague sends a frustrating email, you see it not as an annoyance, but as the perfect piece of prima materia. You pause, feel the heat of your irritation, and instead of reacting, you apply the cooling water of your breath. In that sacred pause, you allow the fixed reaction of anger to sublimate into the volatile space of choice, and then you consciously condense it into a measured, thoughtful response. In that moment, you haven't just been patient, you have created patience. You have taken the insight and made it real, turning it from an idea into a lived, tangible reality. This is the creation of the true philosopher's stone, not a mythical object, but a functional, repeatable capacity to transmute challenging situations into opportunities for grace. This work extends beautifully and necessarily into the realm of your relationships. Your interactions with others provide the most potent feedback mechanism for your integration. Think of a relationship as a shared alembic. The energies you bring to it, your volatility, your fixations, your purified gold mix with the energies of the other person, creating a combined substance. If you have done the inner work to sublimate a pattern of jealousy into a stable sense of self-worth, that new golden energy will fundamentally alter the chemical reaction within the relationship. There will be less reactivity, more space, and a deeper, more authentic connection. But this doesn't happen automatically. You must consciously bring your integrated self to the encounter. This might look like vulnerably sharing a new insight you've had about yourself, or it might involve pausing mid-argument to say, "I notice my old pattern of defensiveness coming up, and I don't want to operate from that place anymore. Can we try this again?" In doing so, you are not just healing yourself. You are offering the elixir of your transformation as a healing balm for the relationship itself, demonstrating that the ultimate purpose of the stone is to serve as a universal medicine for the world you touch. The final and perhaps most expansive stage of integration involves your role in the wider community. The alchemical journey, while deeply personal, is never meant to be a solitary indulgence. The energy you have purified and elevated is a form of wealth, and like any true wealth, its value multiplies when it is circulated. Once you feel a degree of stability in your own embodied awareness, the call naturally arises to contribute your unique gold to the collective. This doesn't necessarily mean starting a grand philanthropic project. It means allowing your transformed state to inform how you show up in every context. It means bringing the compassion you cultivated in your heart-centered meditations to your interactions with the cashier at the grocery store. It means channeling the clarity from your contemplations into your work, whether you're a CEO, an artist, or a caregiver, performing your duties with a new depth of presence and integrity. It means seeing your local community, your neighborhood, your social groups, your online networks as a vast, collective alembic where your small, consistent acts of integrated wisdom become the gentle heat that helps raise the vibration of the whole. You become a stable point of reference, a living example that it is possible to navigate the world not from a place of reaction and fear, but from a center of conscious, compassionate power. Yet the path of the alchemist is not a linear one with a single, final destination. The work of integration naturally gives way to the beginning of new cycles, and a master practitioner learns to recognize the subtle signs that a new round of sublimation is preparing to initiate. Life, in its infinite wisdom, will inevitably present you with new challenges, new layers of the unconscious to be brought to light. The peace and stability you worked so hard to achieve might suddenly feel brittle. A new, unexpected source of anxiety or irritation may surface, or you might simply feel a distinct inner restlessness, a sense that a deeper truth is pressing to be born. These are not signs of failure or backsliding. They are the cosmic invitation to begin the Magnum Opus anew, this time working with a more refined grade of prima materia. The fixed gold of your last integration is now becoming the raw lead for your next transformation. This is the spiral nature of the path. You are always circling back to the same essential lessons, but from a higher vantage point, with more wisdom and a greater capacity to hold the sacred fire. To work with these new cycles consciously, cultivate the habit of sacred observation, regularly check in with yourself, is the beautiful routine that once brought you stability now feeling like a rigid prison. That is a call to volatilize your structures, is a relationship that was once harmonious now sparking with new friction. It is likely illuminating a deeper layer of your shadow that is ready to be purified. When you feel the familiar heat of discomfort rising, you can learn to greet it not with dread, but with a sense of reverent curiosity, whispering to yourself, "Ah, the fire is being stoked again. What new gold is waiting to be revealed this time?" This shift in perspective transforms life's inevitable difficulties from meaningless sufferings into sacred ingredients in an ongoing, heroic journey of becoming. You become a co-creator with the universe itself, willingly entering the alembic again and again, not because you are broken, but because you are committed to the endless, glorious process of turning the entirety of your existence into a luminous and lasting tribute to the Spirit's capacity for eternal renewal. As we conclude this deep exploration of the alchemical stage of sublimation, it's vital to recognize that we've been examining far more than a fascinating historical artifact. This is a living, breathing map for conscious evolution, a timeless blueprint that shows us how to participate actively in our own spiritual unfolding. The transformation of base consciousness into spiritual gold isn't a one-time event reserved for medieval adepts in smoky laboratories. It is an ongoing, dynamic process available to anyone with the courage to step into the role of the modern alchemist. Your own life, with all its complexities, joys, and challenges, is the prima materia. Your awareness is the sacred fire, and your heartfelt intention forms the sealed vessel where the miraculous leap from lead to gold can occur, again and again, throughout your entire existence. This path invites you to see every struggle not as a punishment, but as a necessary ingredient, and every moment of clarity as the beautiful, crystalline proof that the work is progressing exactly as it should. What makes this tradition so profoundly relevant today is that it provides a framework for understanding the deepest rhythms of psychological and spiritual growth. In a world that often values quick fixes and superficial solutions, alchemy teaches the virtue of slow, deliberate transformation. It honors the necessity of the dark night, the negrito, understanding that dissolution often precedes the most brilliant creations. It reassures us that the feeling of being stuck, of confronting our most fixed and heavy patterns, is not a sign of failure but the essential starting point of the entire operation. When you apply the gentle, consistent heat of your attention to a long-held fear or a stubborn wound, you are performing the same operation as the alchemist heating their alembic. You are initiating a process of inner purification that has the power to liberate trapped energy and grant it wings, turning what was once a burden into the very substance of your freedom. This is why your personal experiences with these concepts are so incredibly valuable. The real laboratory for this work is not in a book or a video, but in the lived reality of your daily life. When you notice a moment of reactive anger and, instead of lashing out, you pause and breathe, allowing it to volatilize into a clear understanding of a personal boundary, you have successfully performed an act of sublimation. When a period of profound grief, after being held with compassion, gradually transforms into a deep, empathetic connection with others who suffer, you have witnessed the creation of spiritual gold. These are not just metaphors, they are the tangible results of engaging with these ancient principles. I am genuinely curious to hear about these moments in your own journey. In the comments below, share what resonated most, what questions arose, or perhaps a story of your own inner transformation. Your insights enrich this collective exploration and help build a community of modern seekers, all learning to navigate the great work together. If this deep dive into the mysteries of sublimation has sparked a flame of curiosity within you, there is so much more of this esoteric landscape to explore together. From the intricate symbolism of the emerald tablet to the psychological depths of Jungian archetypes, the world of spiritual alchemy is vast and endlessly fascinating. This channel is dedicated to unpacking these powerful traditions, making their wisdom accessible and practical for our contemporary lives. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and tapping the bell notification. By joining this community, you'll ensure you don't miss our next journeys into the heart of esoteric wisdom, where we'll continue to uncover the tools and maps that can guide our own sacred ascent. So as we bring this particular exploration to a close, carry this central truth with you. You are both the alchemist and the great work. Your consciousness is the miraculous substance capable of endless refinement. May the sacred fire of your aspiration burn with a steady and purposeful flame. May the vessel of your awareness remain strong and clear, able to contain the beautiful chaos of transformation. And may your journey continue its sacred ascent, always guided by the inner knowing that within you lies the profound and eternal capacity to turn every experience, no matter how dense or challenging, into the radiant, liberating gold of an awakened